this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
You're listening to a podcast, so you're doing something else too, like maybe scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving places you like without thinking you'll get them, because that's what house hunting has become. But Redfin isn't built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents, which means when you find a place you love, you've got a real shot at getting it. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Sink into affordable luxury. Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa, inside and out. With stain-resistant slip covers and a cloud-like frame duvet, everything goes right in the wash. Plus, the modular design lets you change the look of your space anytime. Visit WashableSofas.com to upgrade your home. Shop up to 60% off site-wide, with sofas starting at just $699 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Shop now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Cool Zone Media.
Hey everybody, Robert Evans here, and I wanted to let you know this is a compilation episode. So every episode of the week that just happened is here in one convenient and with somewhat less ads package for you to listen to in a long stretch if you want. If you've been listening to the episodes every day this week, there's going to be nothing new here for you, but you can make your own decisions.
Welcome to It Could Happen Here, the show about how a small group of people are trying to keep making bad things happen, and we're going to tell you what they are. I'm Garrison Davis, and joined with me is Dr. James Stout. Hello, Doctor.
Hi, Garrison. Thank you for having me. Put some respect on my name. Appreciate it.
So today we're going to be talking about something called Agenda 47, and actually we're going to be talking about this whole week. We've gotten a lot of requests to talk about the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, which is a kind of a roadmap for how a Republican president could change the country if they get elected next year. And although this proposal is scary and quite big, it's a massive, massive book.
Yeah.
Trump certainly listens to these types of guys, but he doesn't always really like them.
Yeah, he does what the fuck he wants. Like, ain't no one controlling Trump.
He kind of does whatever he wants, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, there certainly are other people like in Congress, including the Speaker, who are definitely pushing this Project 2025. And I think we'll probably talk about this on the show at some other point. Mm-hmm. But Trump actually has his own plans for if he's going to be elected president again. And we're going to be talking about that. And that is called Agenda 47, which I believe is a subtle reference to the 47th president, which will be him if he gets elected.
Yeah. Also the 45th president. So
yeah,
sell more merch that way.
So the next few episodes, we're going to be diving into Trump's plans for if he becomes the 47th president of the United States, called Agenda 47. He has all of these listed on his website. And one of my favorite parts is that to accompany each one of these policy proposals, he has a video of him reading out something on a teleprompter, and he very often will go off script just completely and just start talking, which they include the entire transcript for underneath each video, which is just fascinating to read, totally divorced of how he talks. It's just amazing. Also, all of the videos are embedded on his website via Rumble, which is just amazing stuff happening.
It's perfect.
So that's kind of the the overview of what we're going to be doing this next week and why. And the reason why I have James here, James, you work in education, right?
I do some educating, yeah.
So you have opinions on education, I would assume.
Yeah, strong ones.
As a doctor.
Yes, I do. Yeah. A doctor of modern European history, just to be clear before anyone sends me pictures of their illnesses. Please don't.
So I'm going to be talking about Trump's plan for education. And by the end, we can see if it gets the James Stout approval as someone who works in education.
yeah. I'm open-minded. Let's see what he's got.
So Trump, now, the problem with us doing these episodes is that all of these are like videos, right, for his policy proposals. And I don't want to subject you, the listener, to just videos of Trump talking. You don't need to hear that. But there's a part of me, just deep down, a shameful part of me, that when I'm reading these quotes, I really want to like slip in to like a bad transgender Trump impression, which I've tried to suppress. I've tried to suppress this urge, but every once in a while, it just sneaks out. So as I'm going through these quotes, I cannot promise that certain things might start happening, and it's just a part of the deal.
You've been possessed by the spirit of Donald Trump.
Oh, God. So on this note, Trump opens his education proposal with this line, quote, "Our public schools have been taken over by the radical left maniacs," which really sets a tone for the rest of what we're going to be talking about today.
I do want to highlight that I've been trying for more than a decade, but obviously some other people have been more successful than me in that regard.
So over these next 25 minutes, I'm going to try to explain what he calls his, quote, plan to save American education and give power back to American parents. And the American parents line is going to be a reoccurring trend here. So in kind of a broad overview, Trump believes that regular public schools, as well as colleges and universities, are just so far gone to not only require massive regressive changes, but also, frankly, whole new alternatives are needed. Which leads us to our first policy proposal. So Trump says that Americans are horrified that, quote, once respected universities express support for the savages and jihadists who attacked Israel, unquote.
Oh, damn.
So that's obviously not great.
There it is.
Savages, very, very quick, just immediately getting into this sort of stuff. Despite spending more money on higher education than any other country, schools are, quote, turning our students into communists and terrorists and sympathizers of many, many different dimensions, unquote.
What does that even mean? What does it...
I said they're sympathizing with the alternate dimensions. You know,
I see. Yeah,
the mirror universe version. They're gaining too much sympathy.
Yeah.
As well as turning into communists and terrorists.
To be fair, he is right that one of the areas where you will find the few Twitter is the other area, unreconstructed Marxist-Leninists is in the academy. that it's there and on X.com, formerly known as Twitter.
So to combat this communist and savage and jihadist incursion into universities, Trump is proposing something, quote unquote, dramatically different. His plan is to seize, quote, billions and billions, unquote, of dollars through taxes, fines, and lawsuits against, quote, excessively large private university endowments, unquote, and use that money to, quote, endow a new institution called the American Academy, unquote.
That's already a thing. The American Academy is already... Wait, is he spelling it with an E or it's Y?
No, it's with a Y.
Oh, okay, so it's a place, not like the institution.
So, the American Academy will seek to, quote, make a truly world-class education available to every American, free of charge, without adding a single dime to the federal debt. And then to do this, quote, the institution will gather an entire universe of the highest quality educational content, unquote. And I love the phrase educational content.
Yeah, this sounds a lot like the short PragerU videos that
Yeah, wait, what do you you're starting to suspect certain things, right?
Yeah.
What do you think the American Academy is going to be here based on the limited information you have?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a credible university, does it? It seems a lot like if Jordan,
it's a world-class education.
maybe it's what Bari Weiss is doing in Texas. Maybe she's going to be helming the American Academy. It sounds like Jordan Peterson's Grift University is what it sounds like.
It's a world-class education after you gather an entire universe of the highest quality educational content. So this content, Trump claims, will, quote, cover the full spectrum of human knowledge and skills and make that material available to every American citizen online for free, unquote.
That's a library. What he's describing is a library. We already have those.
Not quite.
The content
Not quite.
part.
It's not just a library because, quote, the Academy will utilize the latest breakthrough in computing, unquote, as well as study groups, mentors, and industry partners to provide a truly, quote, top-tier education option for the people. For this next part, I have to do it in the Trump voice because otherwise the grammar won't make any sense. Whether you want lectures or an ancient history or an introduction to financial accounting or a training in a skilled trade, the goal will be to deliver it and get it done properly. So I love the phrase, whether you want lectures or an ancient history.
yeah, like you can give yourself a history, like you could just go back to Sumeria and insert yourself.
Whether you want lectures or an ancient history. Or an introduction to financial accounting, or training in a skilled trade. So you will be able to learn all of this online for free, getting a truly top-tier education, which sounds like, okay. But Trump specified that your American Academy education will be, quote-unquote, strictly non-political, unquote.
Good.
I'm really excited to learn an ancient history from a strictly non-political standpoint. That's great.
Yeah. We can't discuss the formation of the state because there will be a political stance.
Furthermore, Donald Trump promised that at American Academy, quote, there will be no wokeness or jihadism allowed. None of that's going to be allowed.
How will I teach without jihadism? My personal jihad is to educate the youth of America, but now I can't partake in it.
Sorry, not allowed. Not
very
allowed,
sad.
according to Trump.
Very sad.
Very sad. So, this plan also seeks to help the 40 million Americans who have some college education but no complete degree by granting credit for past coursework at quote-unquote legacy institutions, and giving Americans, quote, the chance to complete your education at the American Academy for free and much more quickly than is now possible or available, unquote. So now if there weren't red flags going off already, there certainly should be now with that last line, more quickly than is now possible or available, which is a classic tell of an online university scam. Now, the exact details of how the American Academy is supposed to work are kind of unclear. Probably because it hasn't been figured out yet.
Because it's bullshit, Garrison.
And quite possibly never will get figured out.
Yes. Yeah, many such cases in Agenda 47, as it turns out.
But Trump University founder Donald Trump did say that his American Academy proposal does plan to, quote, compete directly with existing and very costly four-year university systems by granting students degree credentials that the U.S. government and all federal contractors will henceforth recognize.
Yeah, they'll recognize them as fucking useless.
Not degrees, degree credentials.
Yeah.
Degree credentials.
Yeah. Gonna put my degree credential up on my wall.
This is just another Trump University, an uncredited scam that Trump is hoping to prop up with the federal government this time instead of his business empire. It's not.
That's his entire thing, isn't it? Like that is the whole thing with Donald Trump.
It's not real. It's not real. He's framing this plan as a quote unquote revolution in higher education that will provide life-changing opportunities by awarding American citizens with, quote, the full and complete equivalent of a bachelor's degree.
I love it when he just fucking sends it on. There's going to be one in my episode, which you'll hear later this week, when he just cannot say the word film. And I love that he doesn't fucking try. He just owns it.
The full and complete equivalent. That's neither full nor complete if it's an equivalent. Anyway, Trump ends this video with an eloquent, quote, enjoy it, learn from it, and thank you. Which is just...
I'm going to finish all my lectures that way. That's... and then I'll do like a smoke puff and just disappear.
So yeah, this is the first plan to save American education. That sounds great. I cannot wait to get a full and complete equivalent
I hope they have a medical
of a bachelor's degree credential. Very, very cool.
Yeah, wonderful stuff.
But do you know what isn't a scam, James?
Can we say that? Like, we might be in
absolutely.
hot water for you sure?
I trust my life on every single product and or service that follows this musical sting. We are back. I repeat, do not send me any of the advertisers that just aired. I don't care what they are. My life is indebted. I don't care. I don't care.
Mm-hmm. You can send them to Sophie. Her Twitter is at @IWriteOK.
@IWriteOK. Send it to Sophie. All right. So, while this Trump University 2 will remain uncredited, Donald Trump, creator of the Donald Trump board game that did not sell very well in 1980.
The what?
Yeah, didn't you? Yeah, creator of the Donald Trump board game. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Is it like Monopoly, but you just like lie and generate?
I didn't look too far into it for the bit. I'm gonna be honest here.
Okay. Disappointed. I was ready to go on a deep dive.
But Donald Trump also plans to attack the current accreditation system for being run by a communist scourge, which leads us to our second Agenda 47 topic, titled, quote, "Protecting students from the radical left and Marxist maniacs infecting educational institutions," which I believe he's talking about you, James.
Yeah, which is ironic because I'm an anarchist and I'm not a Marxist. But
you're not a Marxist maniac.
No. Sadly, not many such cases. But I do make them read the Communist Manifesto in my 101 class.
It's okay.
You got to read it. It's something you should emerge from history education having read.
So, Trump starts by talking about how, quote-unquote, academics are, quote, obsessed with indoctrinating America's youth at colleges and universities while charging a ballooning tuition fee. Trump claims to have a, quote-unquote, secret weapon that he will use to, quote, reclaim our once great educational institutions from the radical left. The college accreditation system. It's called accreditation for a reason. Unquote. It's called accreditation for a reason. He never extrapolates on that sentence.
No, yeah. I genuinely don't. I can't fathom what I think he means. That could go in so many directions.
There's no way to know. There's no way to know.
Just leaves it hanging.
So Trump explains that, quote, accreditors are supposed to ensure that schools are not ripping off students and taxpayers, but they have failed totally, unquote. Which is not really what college accreditors do. Both government-run and private accreditation organizations exist to develop criteria and conduct evaluations to ensure educational quality and authorize if a school qualifies for student aid programs from the Department of Education. That's generally what accreditation institutions do. They don't look out for if students are being ripped off. Like, that's not really their role, but whatever. So, upon returning to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C., Donald Trump promised that he will, quote, fire the radical left accreditors that have allowed our colleges to become dominated by Marxist maniacs and lunatics. So he believes that there's like communists that are running the accreditation system, and that's what's currently ruining colleges. That is his belief.
Yeah. They come in, they sit at the back. There's a little book, it happens to be red, and then we have a criticism circle afterwards where they check how many Marx references you've made in your lecture.
So after sending all these communists to the gulag, Trump will then begin to, quote, accept applications for new accreditors. Now, it's unclear if he's talking about just like the public or private sector here, but these new accreditors will, quote, impose real standards in colleges once again and once and for all. Now, what such standards, you ask? Thank you, James.
You're welcome, Garrison.
Trump gave us a handy little list, which includes like some of the more average conservative to libertarian-esque positions, like protecting free speech, eliminating wasteful administrative positions that drive up costs, offering options for accelerated and low-cost degrees, providing meaningful job placement and career services, and implementing college entrance and exit exams to prove that students are actually learning or getting their money's worth, right? Which all that sounds like kind of standard politician talk, right? It's like, okay, sure. But Trump did mention a few other standards that will be imposed once again by this new generation of accreditors, which will also include, quote, defending the American tradition and Western civilization and removing all Marxist diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucrats, unquote. So DEI, the right's new favorite boogeyman that's responsible from everything from rising university costs to botched surgeries, aviation incidents, and boats malfunctioning and colliding with bridges. It is the villain of the conservative right at the moment. And so, because this has been a trending topic among conservatives, Trump's trying to jump on this DEI train, which sounds incredibly dangerous from their perspective. Because this term, he probably never even heard of before like a year ago. Like, come on.
No, I don't think he implemented DEI in his business institutions. I think this is... Yeah, it's a word they say when they can't say slurs. They think they found a funny workaround to saying slurs.
I mean, that's this thing with like every time someone says like critical race theory, woke, or DEI, they're really just trying to say a slur. And if you replace,
but they're cowards.
If you replace those three terms with just a slur, their sentences make a lot more sense because the way they use the word woke does not mean anything in a lot of cases. But if you just replace it for a racial slur, you're like, oh, now I can understand what they're saying. It's a handy trick that really is not fun to think about.
Yeah, or subtle.
As a part of this DEI frenzy, Trump has promised to, quote, direct the Department of Education to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination, unquote. Which also kind of calls upon like older like affirmative action complaints that conservatives have been talking about for years now.
That's what I wondered if he was going after.
Yeah, it ties into that as well. And Trump added that this race-based discrimination, quote, includes discrimination against Asian Americans, unquote, which is definitely invoking that style of affirmative action conservative rhetoric from like 5 years ago.
Yeah, even more recent. When was that Supreme Court case?
Oh yeah, that was just like last year.
Becky with the bad grades.
Yeah. So, beyond just threatening to sick the DOJ on woke schools, Trump also made the more specific promise that if schools, quote, persist in explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity, unquote, he will not only make sure that their endowments be taxed, but also, quote, through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment, unquote.
Does he realize that not all schools have endowments? Like, I teach at the community college. We ain't got an endowment.
No, I'm sure that he's going to go after like the Harvard endowment. Yeah, that's going to track. Have fun fining $50 billion from Harvard. That's totally going to happen. But his plan after he seizes these endowments, quote, a portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we're going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. So, that's cool. Okay, sure. You're going to use this to pay back white people who've been denied college admission. Okay, cool. That sounds like a winning electoral strategy.
Yeah, finally the reparations people have been demanding for decades.
Exactly. You know who's had it too hard for too long, James?
It's white people who didn't make it through college, Garrison.
It's because they didn't it's because they didn't go to Yale. Now they have to go to Princeton. Embarrassing.
Yeah, terrible. Right? Why would you even bother?
So. But it's not just colleges. Trump also threatened to, quote, cut federal funding for any school or program publishing critical race theory, gender ideology, or other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children. We're not going to allow it to happen, folks. Very cool.
Great. Yeah, I used to teach a gender sociology course, so I look forward to
defund.
Yeah, no. We're going down fight together. We're going to that shit. They will have to fight their way in.
James, don't say that on air. You can't say that. You're going to turn your community college into a... You can't say that. So yeah, he's going to go after regular schools, both colleges, universities, regular schools, if there's doing any CRT, gender ideology. You can tell that some of this was written like a year and a half ago, because no one's talking about critical race theory anymore. But
yeah, he missed it. But like, can you imagine teaching a sociology course and just being like, yeah, we're going to skip past race and gender?
Politics? We're going to skip past politics. Okay.
Yeah. This is a man who himself went to like, did he go to Harvard or Yale?
No, he did not go to either. He was sent to a military school by his father when he was 13 for being annoying. Then he went to a school in Pennsylvania.
Respect.
And then, what other school did he go to?
Critical respect to his dad.
He went to the New York Military Academy. Then he went to Fordham University, and then the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School.
Oh yeah, Wharton Business School. Yeah, not a real graduate degree. That's right.
So, the reason why this is all so evil is because Trump thinks that a lot of this stuff is basically forming a new religion. All this woke stuff. Quote, the Marxism being preached in our schools is totally hostile to Judeo-Christian teachings, and in many ways it resembles establishing a new religion. Can't let that happen. Can't let that happen.
Yeah, one thing we take a big swing at is Judeo-Christian institutions.
To combat this growing threat of religious Marxism, his administration...
I'm sorry, I cannot, His administration
will, quote, aggressively pursue potential violations of the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause of the Constitution. That's very simple.
I don't think you quite understand the full remit of that there. But luckily, we do Russian Orthodox Marxism at my university, so we should be safe.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well.
A lot of beards.
So, and then in kind of like a laundry list of policies and talking points, Trump pledged to, quote, veto the sinister effort to weaponize civics education. We will keep men out of women's sports, and we'll create a new credentialing body that'll be the gold standard anywhere in the world to certify teachers who embrace patriotic values, support our way of life, and understand that their job is not to indoctrinate children, but very simply to educate them.
No one has ever created a credentialing body for patriotic teachers who embrace, quote, our way of life before. It's never been done. Not in the 1930s.
The sinister effort to weaponize civics.
Yeah. Just imagine him looking for the civics bill.
Yeah, very funny.
Probably distract him for a while, stop him doing some actual terrible shit.
A little bit with that last part with like indoctrinating children, and this next little bit will kind of demonstrate how stuff like QAnon didn't simply go away like some have postulated. Instead, it's just been absorbed into the fabric of American politics. No longer does the boogeyman have to be a DNC pedophilic elite. Now it's been deterritorialized and destroyed, mutated into just being any school teacher or like every trans person, right? Or God forbid, a transgender school teacher.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Right? Which is like the prime evil of the current conservative society. And Trump promises on day one of his new presidency, he will, quote, begin to find and remove the radicals, zealots, and Marxists who've infiltrated the Department of Education, and that also includes others, and you know who you are, because we are not going to allow anyone to hurt our children, unquote.
You know who you are.
You know who you are.
Yeah.
So this is the weaponization of nearly 8 years of QAnon rhetoric, right? That has grown past the need to actually invoke QAnon. Plus the 2 years of the Republican Party, the Daily Wire, and Libs of TikTok working to shift QAnon's kind of disgraced and unfocused momentum towards a manufactured continuation in the form of this transgender groomer craze that's taking over American schools. Quote, Joe Biden has given these lunatics unchecked power. I will have them fired and escorted from the building, and I will tell Congress that any appropriations bill I sign must reaffirm the president's ability to remove defiant employees from the job. It's all about our children, unquote.
Just imagining an executive order to remove someone from their lecture hall.
I am going to be signing an executive order on this podcast to go to another ad break. We are back, and thank you, James, for reaffirming my ability to remove defiant ads.
Yeah, well, while you were all away, several federal agents came in and inserted an ad break.
In this last section here, we're going to return to Trump's conception that entire alternatives are needed to America's broken woke school system, now focusing on the grade school side rather than just the post-secondary. So in this vein, Trump is courting the growing number of homeschooling families. Though, according to a Washington Post poll from last year, Republican homeschoolers outnumber Democrat ones 2-1. So he kind of already has the majority of that vote, but still it's something he is going after. According to Trump, ever since, quote, the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment, unquote. It's just a funny term is homeschool enrollment.
Yeah. Just going to the homeschool to enroll.
I'm going to be enrolling in homeschool. Very funny. And if elected president for a second time, he will do everything to support, quote, parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool, unquote. Again, the way he uses the word homeschool is unlike anyone else I've ever heard talk. It is a very odd use of the English language.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to understand parts of speech. He just does what he wants.
No. And Trump said he'll work to ensure that homeschoolers will be entitled to all the benefits available to non-homeschool students, like being able to participate in athletic programs, clubs, after-school activities, educational trips, and more. He pledged that in his next term, he will allow 529 education savings accounts to be used for, quote, costs associated with homeschool education. Current 529 savings accounts allow families to withdraw up to $10,000 a year to spend tax-free on tuition for private schools, which Trump called a, quote, tremendous win for school choice. Very important, school choice. Remember that term, unquote. That term never comes up again in this video.
Oh, great.
So Trump is planning to expand this tuition savings program to include homeschooling families as well, with a very unknown system of checks and balances to determine what exactly qualifies as costs related to homeschooling. And often homeschooling is used by abusive parents to just have kids do free labor around the house, and they try to make it count as education. And if you're now allowing parents to put money into a savings account to remove $10,000 a year tax-free to spend on education, what does that mean? Does that mean just curriculum? Does that mean household supplies? Because that's being put towards their home school because they're schooling at home. Very, very unclear. And this kind of refers back to some of the general problems of homeschooling, especially in conservative homeschooling, where it just is a large way to abuse children. Not in the groomer way that right-wing people talk about. It's no, you're just literally limiting your kids' access to the outside world because you think if they go outside, they're going to turn gay. So, but even if, there's one final quote from this homeschooling video, which are just fucking phenomenal. To every homeschool family, I will be your champion. Do not vote Democrat. They're looking to destroy you, if you don't mind me saying that. Joe Biden can't put two sentences together, and yet he's looking to destroy you. Do not vote Democrat. Do not vote for Crooked Joe. Vote for Honest Donald. Thank you very much.
Honest Donald.
It's funny because in the video, when he says vote for Honest Donald, he also starts to crack up because he knows how ridiculous this is.
Yeah, God.
Do not vote for Crooked Joe. Vote for Honest Donald. Thank you very much. Very, very cool. They're looking to destroy you, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, if you don't mind me saying. A man who rarely asks permission to say the most insane shit.
So, even if parents are not choosing to homeschool, Trump wants to let voters know that he will fight for parents' rights, which isn't quite a dog whistle, but it does refer to a very specific style of patriarchal rhetoric popularized by hyper-religious conservative think tanks that propose an extremely narrow version of how the American family should operate within society.
Yeah.
More on this later. But so what can Trump do to let right-wing religious parents know that he will be their champion, even in blue states or big cities? As much as Trump might want to be a dictator, he doesn't have unlimited power to impose his war on wokeness in liberal cities.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump, who was impeached for trying to blackmail the president of Ukraine in summer of 2019, does have a plan. He wants to, quote, implement massive funding preferences and favorable treatment, unquote, for states and school districts that make 4 specific, quote, historic reforms in education that Trump has decreed. These 4 specific reforms include abolishing tenure for K through 12 teachers so that we can, quote, remove bad teachers and adopt merit pay to reward good teachers. The second is to, quote, drastically cut the bloated number of school administrators, including the costly and divisive and unnecessary DEI bureaucracy. Third, to adopt a parental bill of rights that includes complete curriculum transparency in a form of universal school choice. And lastly, quote, implement the direct election of school principals by the parents. Trump calls this last bit the ultimate form of local control, something our country has never had, or at least has not had for the last 50 years. So those are his 4 reform plans, which is like, yeah, you know who's had it too easy for too long? Teachers. Let's abolish tenure, adopt merit pay, a disaster of a system, cut administrative roles, put more work on teachers, have parents be able to fire principals by voting and a vote to elect their own principal. And universal school choice is actually more of a dog whistle, that it just refers to a series of like very racist like urban planning policies to direct rich white people's funding into a very few selected number of schools instead of where they actually like live and instead of the actual district they live in. So there's all of that. And like what Trump keeps coming back to among all these quote unquote reforms, it all kind of relates to complete parental dominance. And part of this was the Parental Bill of Rights, which you've probably seen some conservatives talking about more these past few years. And this is another quote from Trump here. It's all about the parents for their children. More than anyone else, parents know what their children need. And if you haven't heard of a Parental Bill of Rights directly, you most certainly have heard of one by another name, the Don't Say Gay bill. That was a parental rights bill, ostensibly targeting education. But these bills often end up giving parents just complete control over every aspect of the child's life. They dictate how children are allowed to express themselves and allow parents to impose nearly any discipline or punishment they desire. Total control over what the child eats, what they wear, what they read, what they watch, what they see online, and what they're allowed to learn in school, who they're allowed to socialize with. Some of these bills that I read through for this also bar mandatory masking policies in schools, back when that was a thing, and then are often full of anti-vax talking points and attempts to ban sex ed and quote-unquote gender politics. As a part of these bills, teachers and school administration are legally required to act as parental surveillance tools to report how a child behaves, how they socialize, how they dress, how they like to be referred to, and who they are friends with. This includes outing children as gay or trans to parents if anyone in the school suspects that the student has a non-heterosexual sexual orientation or is acting in any way inconsistent with their assigned gender at birth. These types of bills often have other consequences as well. In states where some of these bills have passed, like North Carolina, due to legal risks, some elementary schools have been unable to talk about or give out educational materials on consent or how to identify when child sexual abuse is taking place as a part of the Safe Touch programs. These programs are basically unable to happen because teachers will now be held personally legally liable if any parent objects to this material. So parental rights bills have been signed into law in 6 states over the past 2 legislative years, famously Florida, as well as Arizona, Georgia, Louisiana, Iowa, and North Carolina. Since then, similar bills have been introduced in more than 25 states, many of which have passed through at least one chamber. Some of them are still in the process of either passing through a second chamber or being signed by the governor. Yeah. I'm going to end with 2 quotes here from Trump that kind of reiterate this parental dominance thing that he's really pushing for, and also people like Ron DeSantis have been pushing for, Ted Cruz, a lot of right-wing politicians. Quote, "As the saying goes, personnel is policy, and at the end of the day, if we have pink-haired communists teaching our kids, we have a major problem. When I'm president, we will put parents back in charge and give them the final say. We will get back to teaching reading, writing, and math, called arithmetic, and we will give our kids the high-quality, pro-American education they deserve." They're going to teach them math, called arithmetic.
Magnificent.
It's great. Amazing. We may spend the most, but we're going to be tops in education no matter where you go, anywhere in the world. We're going to be tops in education.
Yeah, there will be no bottoms in the American education system going forward.
So this is Donald Trump, the second host of the TV show The Apprentice, who has run for public office. This is his plan for education. Dr. James Stout, how do you feel about these education reform proposals?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a great idea, if I'm being honest. Having listened to it, I think perhaps he hasn't got the sharpest grasp on what's going on in the education system. The reason we have education is because your parents don't necessarily know what's best for you, right? Like,
your parents can't be an expert in everything.
Yes, so some of us go and get PhDs so we can, and then we teach your people how the important things about that. Like, by definition, your parents cannot fulfill all the roles that an education system fulfills. And like,
unlike pink-haired communists who have complete total control over every aspect of what a child should learn.
It's one of the things when you enter the university, like they do the tuberculosis test and then they pass you the pink hair dye. And you get a nose piercing as well.
A lot of this is very much reminiscent of like the fears of like communist education that you see in like the 1930s. How there's a lot of political tension trying to be raised over the fear that there's communists teaching you in universities and schools.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the same time, like
Frankfurt School style stuff.
Yeah, I've written a lot about like anarchist ideals, educational ideals, right? So at the same time, there were anarchists in Spain being like, we should do all our classes in the forest. Let's just go out into the forest. Or
absolutely.
Like, there was a school by the sea where they taught kids, like they were just having this incredible utopian education dream, which in many ways, like we still haven't adapted to some of the things that really could offer. And instead, we're having this McCarthyism part 2.
Well,
which is great.
That is Trump's plan for education, in case you didn't know. So watch out for those pink-haired communists. Keep an eye out for any parental Bill of Rights being proposed in your state, and it is probably has little to do with actually protecting children, and more to do with making parents just a complete dominating force and controlling every aspect of their child's life. And I mean, the other sinister thing about this is like it removes access for kids to talk about things that they may be upset about.
And access to mandated reporters. Like,
exactly.
I'm a mandated reporter. Like, this seems to be taking kids away from that.
Exactly. And I mean, the idea that schools are going to be legally required to out a child if they're acting like perceived to be deviant in some like gender or sexual way, like all of these things are just ways to enable parental abuse in a variety of like ways that are explicit and non-explicit, and it's quite upsetting. And that's the thing that conservatives are currently trying to push for. This is a big topic. This stuff was talked about in the Republican primaries that were completely useless. Constantly, stuff like this is referred to while invoking this fear of like this pink-haired transgender communist teacher, which is currently like the biggest threat to America, according to most conservatives.
Yeah, they can take us down from the inside.
That and jihadism, which are probably linked somehow.
Yeah. I think, the pink-haired jihadist, the famous.
Well, that is it for us today. What are we going to be learning about next for Agenda 47, James?
We're going to be learning next about immigration, Donald Trump's border policies. Many of you will be shocked to hear that they're not very good. I have 2 classes this summer. If you're in San Diego and you want to get in before they take the Marxism out of the education system, you can. But strike now.
I do love how much of this is like, do you know who's had it easy for too long? Transgender teachers. They're having it.
Yeah. The people who are so fucking broke they have to have like GoFundMe's up for the gender reassignment surgery. Like, great stuff.
Wonderful stuff.
So, yeah.
All right, we will be back tomorrow to talk about Trump's border policies, things that'll probably be totally normal, totally chill.
Mm-hmm, yeah, just very, very similar to both. Fucking sadly, they are similar to Biden's, but that's a whole other dystopia.
That's a whole other discussion. All right. See you on the other side.
Bye.
Tired of spills and stains on your sofa? Wash away your worries with Anabei. Anabei is the only designer sofa that's machine washable inside and out, starting at just $699. Plus, Anabei sofas are pet-friendly, stain-resistant, and feature changeable slip covers and modular pieces. Get up to 60% off site-wide with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Visit WashableSofas.com to get yours now. That's WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Hello, and welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast where my friend Garrison Davis and I incur countless amounts of trauma by watching videos of Donald Trump talking about things he doesn't understand. How are you doing today, Garrison?
Oh, I'm doing fine and peachy on this wonderful spring afternoon.
Yeah, we'll sort that out for you. We'll bring you back down because what we gathered here today to discuss, Garrison, is that we talked about Agenda 47 yesterday, so hopefully people have listened. If you haven't, you can go back and understand what Agenda 47 is. The short version is that it's Donald Trump's policy platform for his proposed second term, right? If he gets elected in 2024. And there is a lot of Agenda 47. We're breaking it down.
There is a lot of Agenda 47.
Woo! Yeah.
Arguably too much Agenda 47.
Yes, yeah. One could argue that, I think, quite compellingly. What we're talking about today is his border and immigration policy. And I don't think it'll shock anyone to hear that these are major pillars of Agenda 47, right? He kind of launched his political career with an incredibly bigoted speech about migrants. And it's been the real through line, like the only thing, one of the few things where he actually was able to be efficient enough to do a large amount of harm was at the border and with immigration, right? And it certainly seems like he has plans to do a lot more in 2024 or post-2024, I guess. Biden's tried to counter this by lurching to the right, but he's harmed a lot of people in the process, but that hasn't stopped Trump without taking a breath, outflanking him far to the right on immigration policy. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So Agenda 47's website, it's structured with a series of these scripted Rumble videos, which are embedded, and then in a spectacular own goal, also transcripted, which just, like Garrison said yesterday, it is a joy to read Donald Trump speaking without hearing Donald Trump speaking. It is, you never know what's coming next. Like, it consistently blindsides you. There's no one can, the best to ever do it. No one can replicate Donald Trump. So a lot of the pages detail his proposed actions on his first day in office, right? What he's going to do with his executive power.
Sure.
Which, as we'll go into, he seems to be, this is not a man who attended civics class and paid attention.
Well, because civics are being weaponized. Yeah.
He, peace-loving American, didn't go. Okay. The other things address largely right-wing talking points, which in many cases kind of either fictional or over-exaggerated or not really related to what's going on with the border and migration. And he sort of proposes quote-unquote solutions. Often it's not exactly clear how or if these things are legal, but like I think as we'll get into, that doesn't really matter. His big theme going through all of his immigration content is to end what he calls automatic citizenship for children. I'm not going to do the voice. I can't do the voice.
Yeah, well, because you're cursed with your Britishness.
Blessed, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. God's chosen people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Average Christian identity opinion haver.
Yeah. I'm a big Christian identity opinion haver. Okay, so Donald Trump, right? His big thing is taking a swing at the 14th Amendment, right? At birthright citizenship. And it's very funny that, well, it's not funny, actually, it's quite fucked. But if you're not familiar, the 14th Amendment, right, was passed after the Civil War. And in the first part of the 14th Amendment, there's a sentence that reads, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States.
Cool. That sounds very simple.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It does. What you're not considering, Garrison, is like some fringes on the flag tier legal bullshit, which Donald Trump and his camp, unsurprisingly, are pursuing. We're going to get to a little bit about this later. They're not the first group of people to make ending birthright citizenship their whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It's been sort of a bugbear on the right for a while. So, as I said, the 14th Amendment was strongly opposed by Confederate states after the Civil War, right? But they were forced to ratify it in order to regain representation in Congress.
Yeah, get fucked.
Yeah. So Donald Trump's now coming back on behalf of the Confederacy to challenge the 14th Amendment. Yeah.
Many such cases.
Yeah, in this and many other ways. That's why they call him Stonewall Trump.
Do they?
Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yes, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I guarantee. Let's just Google it real quick. Let's see what comes up. Stonewall Trump. It's going to be one of two things. Stonewall really splits. Wow. Okay, no, there's some cursed stuff there. Google that, your own risk. Okay, so the 14th Amendment has been really pivotal in American history. It's one of the most litigated amendments to the Constitution, right? It gave us the Roe decision, which has now been overturned. It gave us the Obergefell decision, which legalizes same-sex marriage. It gave us Brown versus Board of Education. More relevant here is that it superseded the Dred Scott case and enshrined in law the right of anyone born in the USA, regardless of race or ethnicity, to be a citizen. And it has a few exemptions, like I think the children of foreign diplomats and visiting heads of state are not US citizens. So like King Charles couldn't come over here, have another kid, and then have that kid be a dual citizen. Trump proposes that he's going to stop this immediately on entering office by executive order.
Can you remove an amendment of the Constitution by executive order, James? I'm not a legal expert by any means.
No. I am a historian of anarchists in Spain. This is not the center of my area of expertise, but I'm pretty confident, like without going full Seth Abramson here, that no, you can't.
Okay.
You can't just do that
because it certainly feels wrong.
Yeah, it seems like
it doesn't pass the smell test.
No, I think if American history would be very different if you could change the Constitution by executive order. But it isn't going to stop Donald Trump trying. The specific case he has a beef with is U.S. versus Wong Kim Ark, it's called. It's a couple of people who were Chinese nationals who had a kid in the United States, and the Supreme Court found that their kid was citizen, right? We don't need to go into the case.
Sure.
But Republicans have been on this for a long time. I think they really began to get concerted momentum behind it during the Obama administration. Obviously, before Obama was elected, right, Donald Trump sort of really entered politics with his birther lies, right? And this idea that Obama was not a US citizen and therefore was not eligible for the presidency. And that tendency continued in Republican politics. Lindsey Graham, a man who looks like a melting sloth, attempted to introduce a constitutional amendment during the Obama administration and failed to do so. I don't think he actually ever introduced it. I think he just sort of shopped it around to see if he could get support and then failed. This has been a continuing theme since. Actually, Matt Gaetz, along with Gosar Santos and some other representatives, tried to institute a House resolution last year ending birthright citizenship. Trump has also been cooking up some rather unique legal theories about this for a while. In 2018, he claimed that you don't need a constitutional amendment to change the 14th Amendment. He also repeatedly claimed that birthright citizenship is something that's either rare, or in some cases he claimed it's unique to the United States, which is not true. There are about 30 countries that offer birthright citizenship. The legal justification that he offers most often comes from someone called John Eastman. Do you know who John Eastman is, Garrison?
I do not.
John Eastman was one of the legal architects of Trump's plan to overturn the 2020 election.
Okay.
He has also been indicted in the Georgia case against Trump and his co-conspirators. John Eastman also tried to do birther shit about Kamala Harris. Many of you will be able to draw the line between Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, and perhaps the underlying motivation for their birther stuff. But Eastman is contending, I guess, that the, quote, subjects to the jurisdiction thereof element of the 14th Amendment means that somehow people who live in the United States, work in the United States, and pay tax in the United States are not subject to its jurisdiction if they're not citizens themselves. Which, look, it doesn't matter how, I think the big thing I want you guys to take away from this is that everything he wants to do is probably illegal, and none of that really matters, right? Because we have a court, he's got a Supreme Court which it's packed with Republicans, right?
And has constantly affirmed his ability to do crimes and get off with basically no punishment.
Yes, yeah. This is a man who tried to do a coup and is standing for election again. The court system is not going to save us. If he has enough time and and enough political will, he will try and do this. And I think it's not unreasonable to expect that he will attempt by executive order on the first day of his presidency to take birthright citizenship away from the children of undocumented migrants. Garrison, do you know what won't take rights away from your children?
I forget what food service box we have, and therefore cannot make jokes about on air, but it's one of them. One of them can, one of them can't. And you have to know which one. Whatever one advertises is the good one.
Yeah, always. It'll be when they speak really fast at the end, just slow that down. You'll hear them talking about your children. We're back. We hope you enjoyed those outfits. The second thing Donald Trump is big mad about is something called birth tourism, or what he calls birth tourism, right?
It's okay. I think I see where this is going.
Yeah, it's when you take a holiday to the womb. You go into like a pod, and it's very.
I thought it's where you take a holiday somewhere to pop out a kid, and then they get automatic citizenship.
That's what it actually is. Yeah,
which is a great plan.
Yeah. You go on holiday to like an all-inclusive resort, and then you don't have to pay for your birth expenses because they're included when you go to the all-inclusive resort. It's a great deal for everyone.
Oh, I didn't I didn't think of that.
Huh. Yeah, few people have, but now the word's out, so they might close that loophole. What I think is interesting about his quote-unquote birth tourism claims, it's not obviously this again has been a right-wing talking point for a long time, right? It's that in this particular section of the Agenda 47 website, he includes links to provide evidence for some of his claims, which is a bold move for Donald Trump, a man who eschews evidence. But what he links to is the Center for Immigration Studies, right? The CIS. The CIS is an extremely right-wing think tank. It's founded by someone called John Tanton, and it's listed by the SPLC as a hate group. The reason it's listed by the SPLC as a hate group is because it pretty consistently publishes the work of someone called Jason Richwine, who is an unreconstructed race science guy, right? Like a modern-day phrenologist, if you will. This is a man who is so racist that he was forced to resign from the Heritage Foundation.
Oh, wow.
yeah. Which I didn't know was possible, actually. It was quite...
I didn't know they had, like, a bar for that. Huh.
No, too racist for the Heritage Foundation is quite racist, as it turns out. Put that
on the gravestone.
Yeah, they probably will. After... So, CIS, when there's a bit of a blow-up about this during the first Trump presidency, and CIS claimed it wouldn't be unusual to occasionally include a racist or an anti-Semite given the volume of content they put out. So this led to the Southern Poverty Law Center conducting an analysis of their weekly newsletter. I'm going to read you a summary of that analysis now. The Southern Poverty Law Center and the Center for New Community examined approximately 450 of CIS's weekly emails, dating back almost 10 years, and found that CIS circulated over 1,700 articles from VDare.com. Garrison's face is just... it looks like they've stepped in something horrible.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
This podcast recording?
Yep. That's right. An average of 3 VDare articles every week.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's where Donald Trump is getting the bulk of his statistics and information, or at least, look, Donald Trump isn't writing this stuff, right? I don't think he has the attention span. But whoever is writing his immigration policy is sourcing from VDare.
Do we want to explain what VDare is?
Go off, Garrison. Let us know.
So VDare is like this white nationalist, like anti-immigration, not like a lobbying group, but like kind of. They produce a whole bunch of rhetoric and talking points about all of the big risks of immigration. It gets sent stuff to like Fox News. Trump's used this stuff before. It's not great. They receive like dark money from conservative like funding groups, like Donors Trust. It's ways to it's finding a whole bunch of silly ways to try to justify their types of racism, and they are still a problem. They were founded nearly 25 years ago, and they're still going.
Yeah. I mean, they've compared the anti-white rhetoric to the Rwandan genocide before. What I think is important to hear about VDare is that they exist to take straight up hate rhetoric and insert it into mainstream politics. And
yes, they take stuff from like actual like very like recognized like white nationalist groups and turn it into rhetoric that is acceptable on Fox News. Exactly. That is their entire goal.
Yeah. And CIS, one might argue, exists to take that VDare stuff and dress it up as research articles, statistics, information that might inform policy. There's a bunch of stuff in his sort of abolish birthright citizenship that I don't think we need to get into. He talks a lot about birth hotels. He links to a National Affairs op-ed from Peter Schuck and Rogers Smith. These are the people who have really been like the originators of the abolish birthright citizenship movement. They wrote a book about it, I think, in 1985. It's also worth noting, just so like Trump repeatedly claims in his little videos that children can then make their parents citizens as soon as they become citizens. So if someone was undocumented, right, and their child became a citizen, their child, 5-year-old child can sponsor them for citizenship, and away they are. Now the whole family is American citizens, right? And then the logic of this website goes that like Biden imports these people, they all become citizens, they all vote for the Democrats, right? And this is sort of the great replacement theory with a couple more steps. It's worth noting that children have to be 21 to sponsor a parent. And if that parent has entered the country in an undocumented way, then the parent has to leave for a decade and then come back to apply. Like, it's not possible to simply citizenize your parents as soon as you become a citizen by birthright citizenship. It would be an extremely long game to try and have a kid in order to gain your own citizenship. I've met thousands of migrants who have entered between ports of entry, right? I've never met anyone who have articulated this sort of goal, this route to citizenship. He then goes on to... He has this like this literally a bullet pointed list of border policies, right? These include quote unquote extreme vetting at a quote national vetting center. That's a little worrying. The National Vetting Center.
Yeah, who's going to be doing this vetting? What are they vetting for? Who are they vetting?
Yeah, well, the migrants. Who's going to be doing the vetting? Probably the people who forced women to have abortions in their custody and lost thousands of children and haven't been able to relocate their families. So that'll be great. It's not also clear what they're vetting for. He doesn't say that specifically. He does say that he wants to, quote, unleash interior immigration enforcement, which... anyone who's lived in the United States in the last decade may have noticed that we, in fact, have interior immigration enforcement.
I think that has been unleashed, but sure.
Yeah, it's kind of Mia's whole Twitter thing. But yeah, I guess this is part of his massive deportation thing, right? His goal to deport undocumented people. He does not at any point differentiate between undocumented people and asylum seekers. He seems to see them as one and the same thing.
They're all dangerous illegals or whatever.
Yes, yeah. And anyone crossing the border for any reason other than with a visa in hand to him falls into this, like, should be deported.
If you're a certain skin tone.
Yes, yeah.
Visa plus skin tone is what makes it A-okay.
Yes, yeah. I think that's probably fair. And what else has he got on his laundry list here? Let's see. There's ending federal grants to sanctuary cities. I'm not quite sure how he thinks that would work or what exactly he means by federal grants. Like, are we just going to stop having highways in California? That would be interesting.
One can dream.
Yeah. Let's return. I'm ready. I'll be riding my bike everywhere like a king. He also talks about ending, quote, catch and release at the border. It's not clear what he means by this.
I've certainly heard this term a lot the past year, catch and release.
Yeah, and it's like catch and release was used to refer sometimes to Title 42, a policy that Trump put in place whereby migrants would be caught and immediately turned back into Mexico and released there, and they would generally try and cross again. And we've covered this in an entire series I made on Title 42, right? Another of his weird little bugbears is ending the visa lottery. Are you familiar with the visa lottery, Garrison?
Roughly, but not super.
Okay, so the visa lottery is more properly called something called the Diversity Visa Program. It allows for up to 55,000 immigrant visas a year for individuals from countries that are underrepresented in the U.S. immigration system.
Okay.
So it's literally there to increase diversity, right? I guess it's DEI. It's DEI. He must have recorded this before DEI was a big deal because he doesn't say that. It's a shame.
I'm not sure how much equity there is going to be in the lottery program.
Yeah, well, you're about to find out, Garrison. So Trump has repeatedly suggested that he believes that this diversity visa program consists of non-US countries raffling off green cards. Like you pay and then they draw your number. That's not how it works. It's the United States who decides who gets them. It's a computer program that selects about 50,000 applicants from about 15 million. I have met probably hundreds of people who have applied for diversity visas. I meet them all the time. Every time I'm traveling for work. Myanmar, Thailand, Iraq, Kurdistan, Syria. You'll meet people from all these places who have tried to apply for the system. Most of them end up not getting it because the odds are very slim.
Sure.
When they do get it, they then have to go through a series of vetting processes. And then they have to make an appointment at a consulate. One of the last parts of the process, making an appointment at a consulate to get an interview, right? What the Trump administration did last time was stop people from getting appointments at consulates citing COVID, right? That they couldn't, with the COVID restrictions, get an appointment. That meant that de facto, because you only have 7 months once you get awarded the visa to like fulfill the process and get the paper visa and begin your travel, those people weren't able to get it. And so they had to go back to the start, right? Which is crushing. Like, I know how much of their money and hope people allocate to these programs. And to be told, like, yeah, you got it, it's incredibly rare. And then to be like, oh, actually, you can't make the appointment, screw you. It's crushing. Now, the Biden administration, in all fairness, has restored their right to book an interview, but it's moved it to the bottom of the priority list. So in practice, it's still happening that people can quote unquote win the green card lottery and still not get a green card. It's a complete mess. And Trump's proposal is to entirely do away with it. This would require legislation. That doesn't matter. He also has there's like a one sentence where he claims that Biden's border policies are killing migrants. And weirdly, he links to an NPR article about it. He's not wrong. He's absolutely not wrong. But
yeah.
The but is that Donald Trump would kill a lot more.
Great. I mean, yeah. I mean, are those like referring like specifically to Biden stuff or like the stuff that Governor Abbott's doing? Like what?
It's the increase in border crossings and border deaths from 2020 to present. Much of that is due to Trump's Title 42 policy that Biden wholeheartedly supported, defended in court, right? Because when people were caught and then released back across the border, they were offered unlimited crossings by the people who were like helping them cross, or they de facto had unlimited chances to cross because they're just being dropped back in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
They're dropped without any resources in places where they have no communities. So they try and cross again. And they end up going to more and more remote places because they don't want to get caught, right?
Sure.
So they end up crossing in the places where there are gaps in the wall. Those tend to be very remote, and those tend to be the places where people die. So you can map the deaths, and you can see this in real time happen.
And Trump's pretending to find this to be a problem.
Yes, yeah. Trump is very sad about this. He's big sad. So he's gonna make a kinder, gentler immigration system. Garrison, do you know what else is kinder and gentler than the immigration system?
Well, I guess ads. I mean, I don't know if ads might kill less people, but it's really hard to say.
Yeah, I think they probably would. I think we can confidently say.
Now that cigarette ads are banned, yeah.
What if it's a banana advert? Because then you could get into the whole sort of, like.
All right, well, here, let's play these ads.
We're back. Enjoy your fruit, guys.
I love ethical fruit.
Yeah, nothing. Grow your own fruit. That's the message of this podcast. And then if we did grow our own fruit, we wouldn't have destabilized many of the countries that these migrants are coming from.
Beautiful Georgia peaches.
Yeah. If we destabilized Georgia, a boy can dream. So there's a couple of other bugbears, little sort of things that Trump has. One of them is benefits for migrants. Now, this is something that's been hopping around the right wing for a while. It's really been more sort of one of their talking points in the last few months, I think. Like since right wing streamers certainly started coming to places where I volunteered on the border, I've heard them talking about it. I try not to hear them talking, so they might have been talking about it before, and I was just not paying attention. Just to be super clear, undocumented people are not eligible for most benefits. Even people with legal status have a range of hurdles, including
even if you have a green card, there's a lot of stuff you can't have.
Yes, yeah, and there are also public charge rules, which in some cases, some forms of assistance might be a hurdle if you were looking to change your immigration status. So even if you had accepted them, that might stop you moving along the immigration pathway. That's only for things like SSI and TANF, but I don't think we need to go into like the nitty-gritty of it. He claims that people are coming here to live off benefits. He calls, quote, welfare and a gigantic magnet drawing people from all over the world. They want to come to the United States. They want to feast off the sweat and savings of the American taxpayer. Feasting off sweat is not a beautiful image. But
well, it depends.
Yeah, I know. It's he continues to claim that these migrants also take American jobs, right? So they're at once claiming unemployment benefits and taking American jobs. And again, like, I don't think Donald Trump stuff has to line up for it to be dangerous. Just to like inject a moment of like factual analysis again, you have to wait at least 5 months after applying for a work permit when you arrive here as a refugee to get a work permit. You may not apply straight away. Many people wait for a year or more without the right to work. Undocumented workers working under the table are hugely underpaid, very frequently abused, and the reason, again, why your fruit is cheap. He says in his day one plan that he's going to stop migrant workers taking American jobs by having like American hiring provisions for all federal agencies. Federal agencies are not hiring undocumented people.
Yeah, that's simply not happening.
That is believe me, I am a person who has been a migrant to this country. The amount of bullshit you have to go to even do a government job like teaching is a large amount of bullshit. And they absolutely are not hiring undocumented people. And that brings us, Garrison, to the final pillar of the Trump immigration policy. And for this one, Garrison, I want you to take a moment to listen to this clip of Donald Trump explaining the well-researched information that he uses to develop his immigration policy.
I was thrilled to host a screening at Bedminster of the important new film, Sound of Freedom, about the power of faith in overcoming evil, and in particular, the evil of child trafficking. Big problem. We had it down to the lowest number in many years just 4 years ago, and now it's gone through the roof. Even though the fake news media has tried to ignore it, Sound of Freedom has been a national sensation and a colossal success at the box office, really big numbers. Everyone should see it. This is a very important film and very important movie, and it's a very important documentary all wrapped up in one.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Film.
Yeah.
Film.
Film. Yeah.
Film. It's like you're sliding another I there in between L and M. Film.
I've heard English spoken around the world, and I've never heard that pronounced that way.
What a curious choice.
Yeah, well, it's just a fascinating man.
I mean, yeah, besides the point, like, most of those Sound of Freedom tickets were bought by right-wing billionaires and were for completely empty seats. Sure.
He goes on to detail the exact number of dollars it took in the opening week to talk about how it's such a success. Like, yes, a decent amount of his entire child trafficking policy is him describing the film Sound of Freedom. It's incredible. Like that was a gift that I did not. This is, if you read the transcript, you miss out on some of these absolute Easter eggs that Donald Trump leaves for us.
I think I saw a clip of him at a rally recently where he was talking about Sound of Freedom, and he also said it like that. No, I know what it was. It was him talking about David Lynch when there was that misquote about Lynch saying like Trump seems like an energetic guy or something, and he's like, film director David Lynch endorsed me for president. And you're like, okay, that's not whatever.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
So he's been saying this way for like almost 10 years at least. Because
that's insane, actually. Yeah, like
because that clip was from like the 2015 campaign rallies.
Yeah. Wow. It's not. Yeah. Wow. The power of senility, an incredible thing. If anyone, we could do like the NPR thing. If they say film where you come from,
I don't think anyone else says film. I really don't think so.
Yeah, no, there's not a. Yeah, he just comes up with this stuff from a blank slate.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, you know what else is cool? I
love that this. I love this video because like Trump calls for a death penalty.
Yeah, well,
and we're laughing about film
pronunciation. Yeah, well, unfortunately, Garrison, it's time to stop laughing because yes, Donald Trump. I'm going to outline a death penalty thing. Quote, I will urge Congress to ensure that anyone caught trafficking children across our border receives the death penalty immediately, and that includes also for women. Because women, as you know, are number one in trafficking. Children are actually number two. That's a sentence which you could pick apart for a long time.
What does he mean by trafficking?
That is extremely unclear. He seems to mean the arrival of people in the United States.
Right? Like that's kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah, like
It sounds like it just means crossing the border.
Yes, yeah. And he also says, quote, I will use Title 42 to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families in their home countries and without delay. I made an entire fucking series on Title 42. I recorded it in a week and then I wrote it in a week and then we edited it and it has destroyed me and I have never recovered. Title 42 does absolutely nothing about child trafficking. Title 42 returns all migrants or anyone crossing the border between ports of entry to Mexico. Which suggests that he sees all these people as trafficked, right?
Yeah.
It also absolutely does not reunite children with their families. This is the administration that separated families at the border and has, in some cases, been unable to find the parents of the children it separated. Friends of mine have worked for a very long time, very hard, and absolutely not for the Trump administration trying to find those people's families. But it's really interesting that he is talking about Title 42 again. Title 42, if you're not familiar, is a public health law, right? It's to stop the introduction of infectious disease into the United States. It's a very old law that was initially designed around tuberculosis. And we know that the Trump administration planned to use Title 42 before coronavirus was a thing. Coronaviruses were already a thing, before COVID-19 was a thing, right? So he's just being completely open about his idea to to manipulate public health law in a way that allows him to do things that immigration law would not allow him to do, right? He also finishes up, I guess, by making his claim. Once again, he goes back to the well that is the fucking border wall, right? I'm just going to quote here. We created the most secure border in US history, dealing a major blow to the cartels and traffickers. We built hundreds of miles of wall. We renovated hundreds of miles of wall. We built hundreds of miles of wall. We never had anything like it. And then I got Mexico, free of charge, to give us 28,000 soldiers to protect us from people coming into our country illegally. It's not going to surprise anyone that this is bullshit, right? Trump first made this hundreds of miles of wall claim in a debate with Biden. I filed a FOIA for a new wall building that night. The best estimate I can come up with based on the documents I got from FOIA and from other people's FOIAs is that they built about 85 miles of new wall. They did replace several hundred miles of wall, and in some cases that went from a pretty insignificant barrier to a pretty large one. The 28,000 soldier thing, this will shock you, was also not true. There was an agreement in 2019 with Mexico that didn't list a specific number of troops, but it did say that most of them will be in the southern half of the country and Mexico's border with Guatemala. He then goes on just a complete tangent where he says, I will wage war on the cartels just as I destroyed the ISIS caliphate. 100% gone, 100% destroyed.
Yeah, that's why that attack in Russia was.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's gone. Yeah, ISIS car bombed the street that I stayed on a couple of weeks after I left in October.
This is why the ISIS press people are like begging people to like to believe that ISIS is like still a thing. They're like, no, please, we're still real. We're still around, please.
I'm a real boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The Pinocchio ISIS. That would be a highly entertaining film. Look, I want to finish up by saying here that, like, as we saw in Donald Trump's first term, his malice is really only matched by his incompetence. And his incompetence at the border is much less important, I guess. He's been able to be more competent at the border than he has been anywhere else in enacting his policies. He managed to do plenty of things in his first term that are unconstitutional, because the system only really works when the people playing the game agree that the rules of the game are more important than the outcome. And that's not the case with Donald Trump, right? We know that. The fact that he dedicated so much of his Agenda 47 page to migration tells us that peddling great replacement theories is going to be a major part of his campaign and a major part of his second term if he gets one. The sources that he links to here tell us that he's as addicted to right-wing rage bait as he ever was, and that he's still surrounded by cranks and crackpots with fringe on the flag level conspiracy theories. None of this stuff, none of my suggestions that what he's saying is false or illegal or impossible under the Constitution mean that it's not dangerous, right? I would have told you in 2016 that it was illegal to bounce people back to Mexico without hearing their asylum claims, because it is. But we had it under a Democratic president for 3 years. We had it under Trump for a year. Right? It still happened. He succeeded in moving the border and migration debate massively to the right. And we have Biden advocating for things that would not have flown, that Clinton would have been aghast at, right? And just by Trump making this an issue, even if he doesn't get elected in November, Biden's going to try and fight him on this by claiming that he too is tough on the border, that he too is tough on these fictional things like the taking of American jobs or migrants claiming public benefits or birthright citizenship, right? Like Biden has completely failed to plow his own path on this, and instead he's entirely reactive to Trump. So I guess the big take home here is that whatever happens in November, things at the border are going to be terrible, just like they're terrible now. And
and you can't just rely on politicians to do things at the border. Like there's actually you can't just push it away, be like, oh, now that so-and-so's in charge, now I don't have to think about it. Be like,
well, that's the whole fucking problem, right? The reason that we are so broke, the reason that I personally am so broke and my truck is falling apart is that is what people are doing. At least with Trump, we got money. In 2018, when he held the migrant caravan at the border in Tijuana, my friends and I were there doing mutual aid. And we did just what we're doing now in Acumba, right? We fed people, we bought them blankets, we took care of them, and we stopped them from dying. But at least Libs sent us money. Like, we had tons of money. I remember spending $1,000 on soft toys in the Costco in Tijuana. That doesn't happen anymore because people think that they voted for the kind, gentle, nice guy. And I guess, like, I want people to look at this with the understanding that whatever happens at the ballot box, like, you need to help at the border because neither of these politicians are going to. That's my speech. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Anything else, Garrison?
No, but we will be back tomorrow with more exciting news about.
Yeah, what are we learning about tomorrow?
47 agenda. Actually, I don't know because we have not planned it out that far ahead. Throughout the rest of the week, we'll be talking about Trump's plans for handling the gender question, Trump declaring war on cartels, and his plans to fix the pharmaceutical industry. So, all good stuff.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Kids, pets, life, your sofa sees it all. But with a washable sofa, stains don't stand a chance. All of our sofa collections come with fully machine washable covers and cushions, making cleanup effortless. Liquid and stain-resistant fabrics provide extra protection against everyday messes. Plus, with modular designs, you can rearrange your sofa however you like. Perfect for growing families and changing spaces. Starting at just $699, it's time to upgrade to a stress-free, mess-proof sofa. Visit washablesofas.com today and save. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast where the future president wants us to die and the current president doesn't give a shit. I'm your host, Mia Wong. With me is Garrison.
Hi. Okay.
So, we're covering another aspect of Trump's Agenda 47. All right, we're looking at President Trump's plan to protect children from left-wing gender insanity. Now, despite that title, this is the least Trumpy of all of these. He is just phoning this one the fuck in. It's the most him reading off a teleprompter I have ever seen in any speech he's ever given.
Because historically, he's never cared about this kind of stuff. He's just having to do it now to appease the people he needs to get votes from. But like, if you look at Trump's stances on transgender people historically, however not good, they're not like genocidal. And you can really tell his heart isn't in it in some of these.
Legitimately, he sounds like someone doing an ad read for a Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship. Like, he's so bored. There's like it's funny because you can tell, there's something that started happening in the middle of the administration was you could tell when his speechwriters were just writing in a Trump word for him to say, so it would look less like he was. And they're doing it in this one. There's only like one genuinely Trumpy thing in this. Unfortunately, it all fucking sucks ass. it's quite bleak. So let's get into what exactly is in this.
I would love to hear Trump's plan for the transgenders.
Yeah, so first he wants to end Biden's executive order on gender-affirming care. Now, you might be asking, wait, Mia, what the fuck? What executive order?
What executive order?
I had to look this up, too, because I was like, wait, what is he talking about? So, apparently, back in 2022, Biden issued a series of executive orders that were supposed to protect the rights of trans kids to get gender-affirming care.
So that didn't happen.
No. Now these were mostly stunningly ineffective. Well, I'm going to quote from, I finally found the actual executive order, which is disturbingly hard to find the actual text of because everyone just wanted you to read the press release. Because what's actually in it is, okay, the Secretary of Health and Human Services shall, as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, use the Department of Health and Human Services authority to project LGBTQI+ individuals access to medically necessary care from harmful state and local laws and practices, and shall promote the adoption of promising policies and practices to support health equity, including in the area of mental health for LGBTQI youth and adults. Within 200 days of this order, the Secretary of HHS shall develop and release sample policies for states to safeguard and expand access to health care for LGBTQI individuals and their families, including mental health care services. Now, let's pull out for 1 second to try to figure out what does it actually do? So what is being done there, the thing that is being commanded, is that the Department of Health and Human Services makes sample guidelines for states. And then there's another part where they're talking about how they were going to form a committee to study trans mental health care. So none of this did shit, right? But this is the first thing that Trump's like, we're going to overturn this. I guess the actual substantive shift here is, and we'll get to this in a bit, this didn't do anything. This was just a PR op. And this is funny because he does a series of these things every single Trans Day of Visibility, and then nothing ever happens because it's a joke.
We've had like so many states since 2022 completely restrict healthcare for trans people under the age of 18. And I've not heard of a single instance where the federal government has intervened to help a kid get puberty blockers in a state like where they've passed these sorts of bills banning these practices. I will say this:
the Justice Department has done lawsuits.
Sure,
and I think they won like one of them. So that's not literally nothing. It's just mostly nothing. Like, and then this is the thing: it's coming through the judiciary, not through the federal bureaucracy. And that's a point of contrast that I want to get to because Trump, and this is something that's always been true about sort of the use of executive power by Democratic versus Republican presidents, right?
Sure.
Like the Democrats sometimes do use like massive executive power overreach things, like, for example, Obama's claimed to have the legal authority to kill any man, woman, or child the moment they step off the U.S. soil, regardless of citizenship status, a thing that he used to kill a 16-year-old American citizen in Yemen. So that he does that sometimes, right? But they don't do anything useful with it. And now, let's get to what Trump is going to do with this. Quote, sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. Ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures.
Okay.
So that's bad. What exactly this does is kind of murky. We're going to talk about Planned Parenthood in a second because there's another one of these proposals that's a lot worse for Planned Parenthood.
And I guess that'd be going after some level of like government insurance if you're trying to get medical care paid for if you have government insurance. I guess that'd be what that's trying to target.
Yeah, I think there's like two things. One, and I think this is the main target is, well, I don't know. It's sort of unclear, but the two main targets I think are any kind of federal education program that talks about queer people.
Sure.
And then the second one, yeah, is like if you're in the military, you won't be able to transition anymore because, and this is actually a pretty big deal because there are a lot of federal employees. The federal employees' health insurance would no longer cover any gender affirming care, and this is for everyone, right? Like, this is not
unfortunately
just, yes.
A lot of transgender employees at the DOT.
Yep. So that's very bad.
Fly those drones.
Oh God. Oh, you meant DOD.
Yes, the Department of Defense.
No, you said DOT, Department of Transportation. I was like, well, yeah, that too. There's a bunch of
yes, also because people
trains.
are into trains. Yes, no, but I meant the DOD.
Yeah, no.
Trains and drones.
It's bad. There's an open question here about how exactly this works. So one question that I'm genuinely not sure about, there's a possibility this works like abortion funding, where so federal money can't go to promoting abortions. I think there's some very weird stuff with USAID money overseas that sometimes happens, but I don't know. I'm not a USAID expert, but so for example, so if you are a clinic that does abortions, right, you can take federal money, you just can't use the federal money for the abortions. So it's possible that, for example, so one of the informed consent clinics in Chicago takes federal money for HIV treatment. Under this wording, it seems like they could still get federal funding for that, but they couldn't take any money for gender affirming care.
Got it.
But also, Congress could just pass a bill that stops, I'm pretty sure could pass a bill that stops all funding for anyone who does this. So, but this is something that's kind of interesting about these is that this stuff is all very, very bad. It's also not quite the maximalist genocidal policy yet. I think in large part because they haven't taken power and because the groups who are like pushing this stuff. This is actually kind of an older. This is from February 2023.
Okay.
It's actually a lot older than a lot of the other stuff here, and even back like in 2023, the beginning of the year, stuff was less radical than it is now.
Yeah, that was before the big "we must eliminate transgenderism" thing that started with the Daily Wire, and then Trump mirrored some of that rhetoric in his like CPAC talk from that spring. Yeah, it was kind of a ramp up, but like on some of like the quote unquote transgenderism rhetoric really was getting more popular around that time. The kind of groomer rhetoric from the year previous, 2022, was starting to kind of fade away, and they were finding a new thing to replace it.
Yeah, so there's a decent chance that this stuff is all actually much worse when it gets implemented. That's the way it's written right now, as best as I can tell. So the third one, and this one is a fiasco. Any hospital or healthcare provider who either like gives out puberty blockers or does gender affirming surgery for minors or gives hormones to minors can't accept Medicare or Medicaid. They get knocked off of the approved list.
Okay.
So that is a huge deal because that immediately knocks out Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood gets this like Sophie's Choice thing of either you don't provide puberty blockers, like you don't provide gender affirming care of either like either sort of hormones or puberty blockers to kids, or you lose every single person who uses Medicare or Medicaid. And that's a lot of people. That's like I've seen numbers that suggest it's like 40% of people who use Planned Parenthood use particularly Medicare, and this is a complete fiasco.
I also wonder how this would impact like cis children who need to be put on puberty blockers, because people forget that like puberty blockers have been a thing for like decades and decades and are like well proven to be safe and effective for delaying puberty. It does not stop puberty from happening altogether. It does not castrate you permanently or any of these kind of wild claims.
Yeah. Well, and the stuff that's weird here too is like it's the language they're using is really inflammatory shit, so it's actually deeply unclear what the fuck they're talking about. So,
I mean, and I've read a lot of these sorts of bills, even like the Arkansas bill targeting IVF, when these politicians are questioned about some of the language that would ultimately, if written and acted upon as written, would like block a whole bunch of regular medical procedures from happening. They're often confused about why they're being asked about this, because they're like, no, obviously things will continue on as normal, and if we have to amend the bill to like change this one little thing, then we'll do that. They don't actually think about all the little tiny ways that this also just like interferes with like regular medical science.
Yeah, and
they just don't care because they know because they're never going to prosecute for stuff like that. It just isn't. They're genuinely not thinking about those other use cases at all.
Yeah, and like I'm going to read the first sentence, like the first one of these, like the text of it. revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care, in quotes, a process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. So that's like not real? That's not what gender-affirming care is?
No.
So, but the thing is, right, it's fucking impossible to tell whether this would result in them actually banning all gender-affirming care whatsoever, which includes other stuff as well, or if it's just a more limited ban. Like, who the fuck knows? Because they're not being specific at all, so this can mutate into a whole bunch of stuff. One of the other immediate sort of impacts of banning, particularly of banning Medicaid, is that, like, there's a lot of trans people on it because trans people are significantly poorer than cis people. So, I mean, just to take like a random statistic, so the unemployment rate right now in the US is 3.8%. The unemployment rate for trans people is 18%, which is 1935 Great Depression levels of unemployment. So, you know, if you're a trans person out there and you're listening to people tell you how great the economy is and you're like, what the fuck is going on? The answer is that you literally do not live in the same world as the cis people who are telling you this. You live in 1935 Great Depression. So, yeah, so cutting off one of the ways that people can access medical care if they, you know, can't afford it is a fucking disaster. This is going to, presumably if this goes through, it's the only way that you're going to be able to get like gender affirming care if you're a kid is by having rich parents and going to like some kind of clinic that doesn't take Medicaid or Medicaid. Yeah, so you know what else doesn't take Medicaid actually? Who knows? I don't know. Look, it's a bad time to be doing ad pivots. Okay, so we're back. So, okay, now having gone into all of that detail, number 4 is just, quote, pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. So
this is a great example of the thing I was just talking about, how like theoretically if one was a smartass, you could be like, oh, so you're banning circumcision, and you're like, no, of course not, because they're not thinking about this sort of thing. This is like,
yeah, no, it's just yeah, trans kids can't get,
which also like almost never happens. There may be like one or two very bizarre like outliers where someone has gone through extensive therapy from a very young age that might result in them receiving such surgery at like 16 or 17, but that is such a minuscule amount that simply just does not happen.
Yeah,
in any real statistical notion.
You know, but this is one of these things that's hard because it's like, okay, so like, what are they talking about? And the answer is, who the fuck knows? This could
they think this is happening.
Well, no, but also like, because like because one of the things that they do here, right, is they'll talk about female, like they'll talk about like genital mutilations, like whatever, but they'll also include in that like puberty blockers.
Yeah, of course, because to them puberty blockers are like a chemical castration device.
Yeah, and it's all, you know, this is one of these things, but you know, but the thing I should mention about this one that is, I don't know, it's something I'm sort of hesitant to talk about because I don't know, like I'm torn between wanting to spread panic and wanting to be like, well, this is probably what's going to happen, but there's a non-zero chance that with how far this stuff has gone, that if Republicans take the House and the Senate, that this bill turns into just a full ban, because that's what's being pushed for now by the sort of constituencies that this stuff is for. It's just like a full ban on all care. It's way less popular than even the anti-trans kid stuff, which is not very popular. But on the other hand, like this entire thing is just Trump sort of like being like, yeah, sure, whatever, to these weird anti-trans dipshits.
Yeah, there certainly are a percentage of Republican politicians and like right-wing influencers who do want some of these bills to like expand up to just including everyone, or everyone under the age of 25, as we've mentioned before. I still don't think it's too far off to say whether or not this is like something to actually like worry about in any real sense. It's too murky.
Yeah, but on the other hand, he is very explicit on just banning care for minors. Like that's the thing that he's very Like, that's just in the text, right? The next one is one of the sort of almost every bill that gets passed by a state legislature now has this provision that creates, like, quote, the private right of action for victims to sue doctors for anyone who got any kind of gender affirming care as a minor. We've talked about this on the show before. This is a thing that lets detrans grifters who think that God talks to them, like, try to go and destroy, like, doctors and clinics. Yeah, it's one of the tactics that they use to try to, like, run people who they can't otherwise go after legally out of existence. So, that's just a sort of normal classic anti-trans thing that they want to bring to. Well, I guess the other important part of it is having this on a national level lets them target clinics in, like, blue states that they otherwise normally wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big goal of a lot of this federal stuff.
Yeah,
is being able to actually have it affect, like, New York, California, the other half of the country. Whereas, because right-wing governors are doing all this sort of stuff in a lot of the red states, but that is not satisfying to a lot of these people. The reason why this is being pushed on a federal level is to try to put as much pressure on blue states as they can, just out of the desire for sheer human misery.
Yep. Now, speaking of the desire for human misery, so there is one very Trump one that I've actually haven't seen before. Quote, direct the Department of Justice to investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of, quote, sex transitions to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients, or illegally marketed hormones and puberty blockers which are in no way licensed or approved for this use.
That's deeply funny, because it's just like nothing he's saying is real.
No, like, all of that's fake. The long-term side effects of sex transition is being extremely based and cool.
But no, like, there's just nothing to support any of that notion. So even if the DOJ does investigate this, they're not going to find anything, because no one's trying to market testosterone or estrogen to, like, make money off of it. I know this is one thing that certain freaks at the Daily Wire try to, like, talk about, be like, ooh, the shady pharmaceutical companies are making all this money off of estrogen. It just isn't true, because
they're not. Yeah,
most people aren't paying for estrogen anyway. They're getting it through, like, health insurance. The most I have to pay for is the fucking needles.
Well, and also the thing about estrogen is that the majority of the people who get estrogen are cis women.
Yes.
Like, so, like,
the majority of people who get testosterone are male bodybuilders.
Yeah, and it's like, have you ever fucking tried to, like, get even something like facial feminization surgery, which is, like, technically speaking, is, like, a fairly highly paid someone who's a plastic surgeon? Do you know how long the waiting lists are for that? You can't even pay them to do this to you. You have to pay them and then wait for fucking years because no one does it. It's like
it's something that I think coming off of, like, the opioid epidemic, we have certain influencers online who are trying to, like, find different ways to tie in big pharma to whatever thing they're currently talking about, and they're trying to do that with trans healthcare, and it just honestly, it doesn't. The reason why it hardly gets talked about because it doesn't lead anywhere. It'll get a passing mention in the What Is a Woman documentary. It'll get this passing mention by Trump, but, like, you don't actually see anything on a legislative level actually targeting this, because there's just nothing to do. There's nothing to investigate. Also, all of these drugs are approved and tested for all of these things.
Yeah.
And have been for, like, decades. So, like, it's simply not real.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing where, I mean, I think the actual effect of this with DOJ would just be Trump doing, like, random witch hunts and, like, going through and, like, raiding patients' files for shit, which, like,
HEPA, you're not allowed.
I don't think the Trump Justice Department is going to give us. I mean, well, here's the thing: is the Supreme Court going to stop them? No, of course the Supreme Court's not going to stop. Like,
this is such a non-problem because there's just nothing to do here.
Yeah, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I think the prospect of Trump realizing he could actually just do unlimited judicial tyranny and do whatever the fuck he wants in the Supreme Court, like,
sure,
7-2 will be like, yeah, cops have the right to, like, execute trans prisoners or some shit.
Yeah, but that's not what's currently being talked about.
Yeah, but, like, I mean, I do think there'll be sort of, like, fake scaremongery investigations. I don't think
I just don't think it'll lead anywhere.
This list at all.
I just don't think it'll lead anywhere. I think it's mostly just, like, a wild goose chase to satisfy whatever fucking person who watches too many right-wing podcasts on YouTube, so that I don't see this as anything like super pressing.
The next one I think actually could be real, depending on how motivated they are to do it. So the next one, this is a ban on teachers and anyone who works. So this is supposed to be a directive sent down from the Department of Education, and it says no one who works for a school, so no teachers or any school administration can tell a kid that they might be trans, and that the consequences for this are civil rights, like investigations into them, and also the elimination of federal funding for any school district where this happens.
Okay.
And what this effectively is a threat to cut off federal funding from states if they don't implement what is effectively a Don't Say Trans bill. That one, I think that one's going to be pretty real. It kind of depends on the extent to which the Department of Education is willing to spend a bunch of time going through individual cases. But, given that it's possible that Department of Education just gets filled with a bunch of deranged Trump weirdos, I think there's a real chance that this one actually goes through and does stuff. Yeah. And the other thing about that one is because that's a directive through federal agencies, it doesn't have to go through Congress, which is sort of alarming. It's I don't know. It's one of these things where it's a question of how powerful is the federal bureaucracy going to be. And I tend to lean towards the side of the federal bureaucracy has an immense capacity to cause harm. The last part is he wants to get a bill in Congress that ends all recognition of there being non-binary people and saying that the only genders are man and woman. So this would do things immediately like getting rid of the X gender marker on passports and only recognizing people's assigned gender at birth, which means the government is now saying that only two genders exist, and also that the federal bureaucracy gets to assign you a gender, which is, normally the exact kind of federal tyranny that the Republican Party decries, but, they hate us.
Do they ever actually decry that sort of tyranny?
Federal tyranny, they're supposed to.
Also,
That's supposed to be their thing. But
it's also less like the federal government declaring your gender. It's like whatever random doctor fills out the paperwork.
But the government now is forcing you to, in their eyes, be whatever gender that they decide that you are.
Yes, and we've had some stuff like this try to get passed through in Europe and certain U.S. states for their own state IDs.
Yeah, so that's part one. I don't know why this bill is these three things lumped together, but it's the bill. This specific bill is this one, using Title IX to stop trans women from playing in women's sports in college or in schools.
Sure.
And then protecting the right of the parent to keep their kid from transitioning, which is fucking absolutely
that's
terrible.
Fascinating, because protecting the right of the parent to have your kid not transition, that's some really interesting wording there.
Yeah, well, so let me read the exact wording is protects the rights of parents from being forced to allow their child to assume a new gender identity without the parent's consent.
Yeah, so they're referring to the types of parental Bill of Rights laws that have passed in 6 Republican states. Yeah.
Yeah. So the last one I think is really interesting, and it kind of gives the game away as to what this is all what the actual point of this is for someone like Trump, who's not that interested, doesn't like trans people, but isn't that interested. And this one, I'm going to read it first. As part of our new credentialing system, a credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the role of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique.
Sure.
So this is literally legislating institutional sexism education.
Yes.
And we've talked about the credentialing stuff. It's unclear to me how this would work, because it's not quite the same credentialing thing that you were talking about. But basically, this is a federal mandate that says that you can't be a teacher without teaching sexism, which is.
I'm sure the teachers unions will love to take that one on.
Yeah, well, I and this is one of the things that I don't know. I mean, you have to go into walk in with a stick and beat them on it. But I am so excited for the Trump administration to have to deal with an actual national teacher strike. Have fun with that one, you dipshits.
This is why these types of conservatives really, really hate teachers' unions.
Yeah.
They frame teachers' unions as being like one of like the most evil lobbying forces in America because they really don't like that they don't have complete total control over teaching kids whatever kind of fucked up nuclear family patriarchal bullshit that they want to like mandate by law.
Yeah, and so they're going to attempt to do. They're going to attempt to. They're gonna make everyone watch a shitty Matt Walsh documentary or some shit, and if you complain about it, they prosecute you under the Civil Rights Act for being
good luck.
discrimination or something. So that's Trump's plan to protect children from left-wing gender insanity. It's really quite bad, as funny as some of it is. I mean, it's a bunch of gender-affirming care bans sort of stitched together with stuff trying to knock hospitals out from doing it, stitched to the sexism law.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's quite bad. Come back tomorrow for probably even worse shit. I don't remember which one is tomorrow, but you'll find out when we do.
Sink into affordable luxury. Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa inside and out. With stain-resistant slip covers and a cloud-like frame duvet, everything goes right in the wash. Plus, the modular design lets you change the look of your space anytime. Visit WashableSofas.com to upgrade your home. Shop up to 60% off site-wide, with sofas starting at just $699 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Shop now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Hello, welcome. This is It Could Happen Here, and I am Shireen. Today we are continuing to talk about Agenda 47, and this episode is about quote-unquote Big Pharma. Trump often goes after Big Pharma in his campaign rhetoric, and there is a lot of content within Agenda 47 that addresses what he views as the problems with the pharmaceutical industry. In his first campaign for president, Donald Trump tapped into bipartisan anger over high drug prices to bash pharmaceutical companies. In his latest run for president, he is echoing more extreme elements of his party to suggest that the industry's products may be hurting Americans, particularly children. using children in this way is usually a tried and true tactic to make people get up in arms about something, and it works especially on those who may be less informed. And there are a plethora of reasons as to why our healthcare system is absolute shit and completely sucks, and it's more often a hindrance to the average American. But when Trump continues to spout unfounded and dangerous claims about the pharmaceutical industry, all this does is further undermine public health and any remaining faith that Americans have in it. It reflects how deeply the mistrust of health institutions and anti-science rhetoric have become embedded, especially within a sizable faction of the Republican Party following the pandemic. Trump's comments about drug makers, posted in policy proposals and videos on his campaign website, have largely flown under the radar as his campaign speeches have doubled down on extreme rhetoric, like his use of anti-immigration language and praise of foreign authoritarians. One of the Agenda 47 proposals on Trump's campaign website is called Addressing the Rise of Chronic Childhood Illnesses, and it cites a, quote, unexplained and alarming growth in the prevalence of chronic illnesses and health problems, especially in children, end quote. In a June 2023 video that was posted to Truth Social, Trump questions whether the food we eat, environmental toxins, or the, quote, overprescription of certain medications is contributing to this increase of chronic health problems and illnesses in children. In the video, Trump says, "Too often, our public health establishment is too close to Big Pharma. They make a lot of money, Big Pharma. Big corporations and other special interests does not want to ask the tough questions about what is happening to our children's health. If Big Pharma defrauds American patients and taxpayers or puts profits above people, they must be investigated and held accountable." Trump goes on to call for a, quote, special presidential commission of independent minds who are not bought and paid for by Big Pharma to investigate the rise of chronic illness. Interestingly enough, Trump's language around childhood illness is reminiscent of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s views, who has been a prominent vaccine skeptic, running for president as an independent, and he has been praised by Trump as a, quote, common sense guy. In a video on his campaign website, Kennedy promises to, quote, end the chronic disease epidemic in this country. Kennedy has promoted the discredited theory that vaccines cause autism, and though he doesn't directly make this claim in the video, he previously tied the, quote, children's health crisis to, quote, environmental toxins and vaccines in an ebook published by the Children's Health Defense, which he also founded. Kennedy's campaign spokesperson, Stephanie Speer, said that Kennedy is pleased that Trump is highlighting the rise in childhood disease. Trump's attention to the issue testifies to the success of the Children's Health Defense, she said, and many other activist organizations in putting the chronic disease epidemic on the political radar. And while it is true that the rate of conditions, including disabilities, mental health diagnoses, ADHD diagnoses, and obesity, they have gone up among children in recent years, and this is according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, there are numerous and complex social, health, and environmental factors that underlie these numbers. Increased awareness and better ability to diagnose some conditions are believed to be contributing factors. Vaccine scientist and pediatrician Peter Hotez said, Trump's conspiratorial language is unhelpful, as the anti-vaccine movement in recent years has sought to tie vaccines to a range of chronic diseases. Quote, now that the far right has adopted the anti-vaccine movement, it's very conspiracy-laden. The anti-vaccine movement's rhetoric on chronic illnesses, now being voiced by Trump, is so vague and badly crafted, he says, how do you even address it? Hotez went on to say that it gives them a license to bring up any condition they want, whether it's asthma, or whether it's a peanut allergy, or whether it's lupus. They just use it as a catch-all for whatever they feel like alleging at the time. A spokesperson for pharma, aka the main drug maker lobby, did not address Trump's proposals directly when they were asked about them. Alex Shriver, pharma's senior vice president of public affairs, told Axios in an emailed statement, political rhetoric surrounding healthcare will only continue to rise as we enter an election year. Candidates should focus on voters' top priorities, lowering out-of-pocket costs and holding insurers and their pharmacy benefit managers accountable. Long story short, the trust in public health institutions plummeted among Republicans during the pandemic, with prominent members of the party questioning the safety of COVID vaccines and the actions of vaccine makers, as well as government agencies. And despite Trump's own history of vaccine-skeptical comments, his administration's Operation Warp Speed produced safe and effective COVID vaccines at an unprecedented pace, an achievement that his base doesn't really give him much credit for. Vaccine skepticism has grown among GOP voters in recent years, and recent KAF, aka the Kaiser Family Foundation polling, it found that Republicans are significantly more likely than Democrats to believe that misinformation about COVID-19 and vaccines are true, although independents are not very far behind them, or in some cases, they are more likely to believe misinformation. For example, 29% of Republicans said that it's probably or definitely true that the combined measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine has been proven to cause autism in children, compared with 14% of Democrats and 34% of independents. It's very important to emphasize that scientific research has repeatedly found no association whatsoever between the MMR vaccine and autism. Trump's calls for investigations into Big Pharma, it also taps into GOP voters' anxieties over education, gender-affirming care for adolescents, and the youth mental health crisis. A schools-related proposal on Trump's campaign website calls for the Food and Drug Administration to convene a, quote, outside panel to investigate whether transgender hormone treatments and ideology increase the risk of extreme depression, aggression, and violence. Last spring, Trump made a similar pledge during a speech given at the National Rifle Association's annual meeting. The campaign says that the Trump administration will explore whether, quote, common psychiatric drugs, as well as genetically engineered cannabis and other narcotics, are causing psychotic breaks. It also calls for a Department of Justice investigation into whether, quote, Big Pharma and the big hospital networks have covered up the horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients. And another proposal to, quote, dismantle the deep state, it specifically calls out Big Pharma as part of the plan to, quote, ban federal bureaucrats from taking jobs at the companies they deal with and regulate. In an ideal world, which we are clearly very, very far from, the idea that you can trust the prescription drugs that a health provider offers you, it should be a basic societal norm. While mainstream politicians across the political spectrum on both the right and the left for years have criticized the pharmaceutical industry over pricing, there has been a common understanding that, for the most part, the US system can be trusted to place safe and effective drugs on the market and to remove them if new evidence showing otherwise arises. But Trump is suggesting negligence or cover-ups of safety issues. Vaccine scientist and pediatrician Peter Hotez, again, he said, elements of the GOP, especially the far right, has been targeting science and scientists as enemies of the state. I was hoping Trump would not go there. Let's take our first break, and we will be right back. Another part of Trump's Agenda 47 plan to take on Big Pharma is to end the global freeloading on American consumers. It's honestly a little difficult for me to just not read aloud the transcripts that are on Trump's website that describe his agenda for Agenda 47, because they're just pure comedy, and they're all just provided on his website for our entertainment. So I won't read all the transcripts, but I will read the highlights. Here it goes. Crooked Joe Biden likes to pretend that he stands up to Big Pharma, but in fact, I was the only president in modern times who ever took on Big Pharma, and I took it head on. Biden canceled my tough-on pharma policies the moment he had a chance. As president, I signed a historic executive order declaring that the United States government would pay the same price for pharmaceuticals as other foreign countries, and no more. We don't want to pay anymore. Can you imagine that? How simple would that be? This would have saved American patients billions and billions of dollars. But shortly after taking office, Joe Biden rescinded my executive order, stabbing patients and US citizens and especially our seniors right in the back. For many years, Americans have been paying among the highest prices in the world for our prescription drugs, while other countries negotiate sweetheart deals off the backs of America. On day one of my new term, I will sign an executive order to end this global freeloading on American consumers for once and for all. The United States is tired of getting ripped off. We've been ripped off by everybody for so many decades. We are tired of it. Not going to happen. They should have never rescinded my original executive order. It just shows you the power of Big Pharma. Thank you very much. This was a very easy one, and this was an honor to tell you because this is something that should never have happened. They should never ever have rescinded my executive order. I had to read that whole thing because it's incredible that these transcripts are up here because they are so ridiculous sometimes. I love that they also included like the ending after he already said thank you, how he was like, this was a very easy one. But anyway, I just thought that transcript was worth a little read. Those are his words, what he wants to do and how he thinks. There's more transcripts later that I find funny, but for now, let's go into what he's saying. Trump also has a plan to, quote, end Joe Biden's pharmaceutical shortages and return the manufacture of life-saving drugs to the United States. This is not just a public health crisis, it's a national security crisis, he says. As part of my plan to obtain total independence from China, we will phase in tariffs and import restrictions to bring back production of all essential medicines to the United States of America where they belong. I signed an executive order to begin this process in 2020, but Biden has shamefully failed to follow through. Part of this plan for Agenda 47 will be to restore this executive order he keeps talking about, Executive Order 13944, which was dated August 6, 2020. The executive order required federal agencies to, quote, buy American by facilitating the domestic production of medicines and medical devices that the FDA determined essential to public health. It did so by requiring federal agencies to buy medicines and medical devices that are entirely produced in the United States. Trump says that restoring this executive order will kickstart the domestic production of life-saving drugs. His website says, American doctors should never have to give a patient a drug from an unapproved facility in China or India. We can and must produce these essential medicines at home, rather than allowing federal agencies to buy essential medicines from, quote, unsafe foreign countries. Another angle of his Agenda 47 plan describes how Joe Biden's drug shortage constitutes an urgent public health crisis. It says that Joe Biden's drug shortage is fueled by over-reliance on foreign-made medicines and, in some cases, potentially unsafe manufacturers. Here's some of that fun transcript. Under crooked Joe Biden, there has been a catastrophic increase in shortages of essential medicines. It's a mess. There's currently a shortage of at least 14 critical cancer drugs in the United States. They just can't get it. And every month of delay, cancer treatment increases the risk of death by at least 10%. It's unthinkable that this could be happening in the United States of America in 2023. It is truly unbelievable. We are becoming a third world country very rapidly between our open borders and our bad elections. We are third world. He goes on to say that even more dangerously, the top producer of critical medicines that we rely on in the United States is a place called China. China produces 95% of all ibuprofen, 91% of hydrocortisone, 70% of all Tylenol, and nearly half of all penicillin. Can you imagine that? This is not just a public health crisis. This is a national security crisis. As part of my plan to obtain total independence from China, we will phase in tariffs and import restrictions to bring back production of all essential medicines to the United States of America where they belong. I signed an executive order to begin this process in 2020, but Biden has shamefully failed to follow through. He wants it ended. He wants to take care of China. This is a matter of tremendous urgency. American lives are on the line, and it will be one of my top priorities as president. It will also create countless new American jobs. Thank you. In another Agenda 47 video, Trump announced his plan to eradicate the drug addiction crisis in America. We will not rest until we have ended the drug addiction crisis, he says. For 3 decades before my election, drug overdose deaths increased every single year. Under my leadership, we took the drug and fentanyl crisis head on, and we achieved the first reduction in overdose deaths in more than 30 years. On his website, In all caps, it says, "Saving American Lives." It says that Trump has pledged that he will not rest until we end this crisis, and that he will impose a full naval embargo on the drug cartels and deploy military assets to inflict maximum damage on cartel operations. Ask Congress to ensure that drug dealers and human traffickers receive the death penalty. Direct U.S. federal law enforcement to take down the gangs and organized street crime that distribute these deadly narcotics on a local level. Permanently designate fentanyl as a federally controlled substance. Tell China that if they do not clamp down on the export of fentanyl's chemical precursors, they will pay a steep price. He wants to strengthen the pillars of work, faith, and family, which give life meaning and hope for those struggling with addiction. And he wants to expand federal support for faith-based counseling, treatment, and recovery programs. It's faith-based for me. Even if in theory some of this kind of sounds like a good idea, both subtly and not so subtly, you see the bigotry seep through. It's actually not about saving lives or taking care of addicts. It's about implementing and cementing this country as a, quote, faith-based country. And having faith, which obviously only means Christianity when it's used in this context, it's going to be America's savior. And Trump over here is literally being a Bible salesman. It's so nauseatingly obvious and slimy, it drives me crazy, and the shit actually works on many, many people. The last thing I'll touch on is a section of Agenda 47 that is titled, quote, "Ending the Nightmare of the Homeless, Drug Addicts, and the Dangerously Deranged." It describes his plan to, quote, "rescue American cities from the scourge of homelessness, the drug addicted, and the dangerously deranged." Trump wants to ban urban camping, offering violators the option to either receive treatment and rehabilitation or face arrest. In this transcript, he says, "Our once great cities have become unlivable, unsanitary nightmares, surrendered to the homeless, the drug addicted, and the violent and dangerously deranged. We are making many suffer for the whims of a deeply unwell few. And they are unwell indeed. The homeless have no right to turn every park and sidewalk into a place for them to squat and do drugs. Americans should not have to step over piles of needles and waste as they walk down the street in a beautiful city, or at least once beautiful city, because they've changed so much over the last 10 years. Our first consideration should be the rights and safety of the hard-working, law-abiding citizens who make our society function. When I am back in the White House, we will use every tool, lever, and authority to get the homeless off our streets. We want to take care of them, but they have to be off our streets. There is nothing compassionate about letting these individuals live in filth and squalor rather than getting them the help that they need. We need professionals to help them. For a small fraction of what we spend on Ukraine, we can take care of every homeless veteran in America. Our veterans are treated horribly. Likewise, with all the money we will save by ending mass unskilled migration, we will have a huge dividend to address this crisis in our own country. Under my strategy, we will ban urban camping wherever possible. Violators of these bans will be arrested, but they will be given the option to accept treatment and services if they are willing to be rehabilitated. Many of them don't want that, but we will give them the option. Okay, it's me again. Basically, Trump's plan to end homelessness is to criminalize it. He wants to make homelessness illegal. Alan Mills, executive director of the Uptown People's Law Center, told Newsweek that Trump's plan is unconstitutional and will dissuade people from seeking assistance when they truly need it. Mills said Trump's remarks left him feeling appalled but unsurprised by the former president's antics based on Trump's long history of anti-homeless agendas. He says, "It is blatant in the Constitution that you can't arrest people just because they don't have a home. But more importantly, it doesn't work. People are not homeless because they're afraid of punishments. People are homeless because they don't have a home." Trump's plan isn't over yet, though. He continues by saying that we will then open up large parcels of inexpensive land, bring in doctors, psychiatrists, social workers, and drug rehab specialists, and create tent cities where the homeless can be relocated and their problems identified. We will open up our cities again, make them livable, and make them beautiful. For those who are just temporarily down on their luck, we will work to help them quickly reintegrate into a normal life. For those who have addictions, substance abuse, and common mental health problems, we will get them into treatment. And for those who are severely mentally ill and deeply disturbed, we will bring them back to mental institutions where they belong, with the goal of reintegrating them back into society once they are well enough to manage. It's a tough task, a very tough task, what's taken place on the streets, what's taken place when they're taking so much drugs, but the fact is, we're going to try. This strategy will be far better and also far less expensive than spending vast sums of taxpayer money to house the homeless in luxury hotels without addressing their underlying issues, and they have so many of these underlying issues and needs. This is how I will end the scourge of homelessness and make our cities clean and safe and beautiful once again. We will do it. We will bring back America. Anne Olivia, the chief executive officer for the NAEH, the National Alliance to End Homelessness, also condemned Trump's plan, calling it alarming and dangerous in numerous ways. She said, "The way to end homelessness is not to arrest people and move them out of sight into internment camps. Jail isn't housing. Prison isn't housing. Tent cities aren't housing. Housing, with services tailored to people's specific needs, must be at the center of any plan to end homelessness. Prioritizing any immediate strategy other than housing is a red herring, a political ploy to divert attention from the real resources communities need while othering people in the most vulnerable situations imaginable." And then there was Vote Vets. Vote Vets is a veterans advocacy group. They said on Twitter that rather than continue the progress of helping homeless veterans, Trump wants to find them and toss them into what can be best described as internment camps. Whew. All in all, Agenda 47 is a big fucking yikes, and it should concern you. I'm going to leave you all with an uplifting quote from February 24th, when Trump spoke at the Conservative Political Action Conference. He said, "November 5th will be our new Liberation Day. It will be their Judgment Day." Wow. Can't wait. Until then, see ya.
Sink into affordable luxury. Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa, inside and out. With stain-resistant slip covers and a cloud-like frame duvet, everything goes right in the wash. Plus, the modular design lets you change the look of your space anytime. Visit WashableSofas.com to upgrade your home. Shop up to 60% off site-wide, with sofas starting at just $699 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Shop now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change, and certain restrictions may apply.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Let's talk about modern home shopping. It's sort of become a fun side hobby, right? Scrolling listings at night, dreaming about kitchens you've never seen, or backyards you haven't even stepped foot in, all from the comfort of pretty much anywhere. Redfin knows a lot of people like you want to own, but are stuck in this browsing mode loop. That's where Redfin flips the script. With listings that update within minutes and tours you can book right from the Redfin app, you can see your dream home the moment it appears. Now, liking a listing is easy, but actually landing it, that's where Redfin comes in. Redfin has over 2,200 agents with local expertise. And Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. That means they want to help you win, not just window shop. Redfin is built to help you go from just looking to wait, this could actually be home. So become the newest neighbor on the block. Visit redfin.com to start finding and start owning. That's redfin.com.
Hello and welcome to It Could Happen Here, a podcast about things falling apart. And this week, a podcast about Agenda 47, Donald Trump's plan for, what to do if he winds up winning re-election and being back in all of our lives in the sense of having political power, as opposed to just back in all of our lives because he never shuts the hell up, and neither do any of the journalists who report on him. So, we're talking about that all week. You've been listening to the episodes put together by my colleagues. Today, I'm going to be talking about Trump's border policy, particularly his promise to declare war on the cartels and use the United States military to attack them. Before I get into it, I do want to note, if you notice, this sounds a little bit different. I am in Texas currently. My father has leukemia. He's being treated for it. He's on chemo in the hospital. Just finished chemo, actually. But anyway, I had to fly down to Texas last minute, and I'm not recording this in my normal space. We should be back to normal, very soon here. But I just wanted to explain, if you think it sounds different, it's not me fucking something up. I just had to fly across the country. So let's talk about Agenda 47 and the cartels. Back in 2008, when I was still a baby, and in fact, in Dallas, Texas, as I am right now, I worked as the secretary for a financial planner named Al Jones. I was bad at this job, and I didn't really know much about financial planning then, but I have since come to suspect that Al was not great at his job either. The first sign of this might have been the fact that when I took the job, Al got excited because I mentioned during our little interview that I wanted to be a writer someday, and he was like, "I'm a novelist," and I was like, I thought you were a financial planner. And then he hands me a copy of his self-published novel, Operation Night Watch. Now, the plot to this motherfucker was barkingly mad. Spurred on by an epidemic of inner-city violence, the government sent in a team of special forces guys to take on the criminals. I think it's the government who sends them. They may just be a bunch of Green Berets and Navy SEALs who decide to fight crime on their own. It's been a while since I read the thing. I'm trying to have a hardcover delivered to me, but there's not a lot of them left. So you may get to hear more from this book. But anyway, the idea of this is that, there's all of these very much racially coded criminals in the streets, making life too dangerous for regular people, these evil drug dealers and robbers, and we just need our special forces guys to murder them, right? There was a lot of uncomfortable fetishization of brutal violence from this very mild-mannered seeming dude who mostly held meetings at Texas roadhouses with old people to try to get them to invest in annuities. Or whatever a split annuity is. I've since forgotten. So, again, obviously, even at that point in time, mostly having lived either in the country or the suburbs, I had spent enough time in Dallas to know that his description of inner city life was not precisely accurate. But what I remember most about the book is that it wasn't even really a story. It was, and talking to Al made this clear, a literal description of the policy he wanted to see. The thin characters that he included in the story were basically just there to help dress up what was, again, a policy proposal. And that policy was we should use the U.S. military to kill, quote-unquote, drug dealers, right? Now, over the last 15 years or so, mainstream Republican policy has actually caught up to my old boss. And now President Trump has included in Agenda 47 a promise to invade Mexico with U.S. Special Forces. That's not the extent of the promise. We will be talking about that all through this fun episode. On December 22nd, 2023, the Trump campaign uploaded a page titled President Donald J. Trump Declares War on Cartels to his campaign website. And I don't know about you guys, I'm pretty sick of the motherfucker's voice, so I'm just going to read how this opens. But if you go to the website, you can listen to him say this, if that makes you happier. The drug cartels are waging war on America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels. In this war, Joe Biden has sided against the United States and with the cartels. They're making more money than they've ever made before, times 10. There's never been anything like it. They're major companies. They're bigger than even some of our biggest companies. Biden's open border policies are a deadly betrayal of our nation. He's definitely got a unique diction. You know Trump came up with that one more or less on his own. Didn't need to be scripted. Now, Trump goes on to state after this that when he is president again, the United States government will treat cartels the same way they treated ISIS, which, you might recall, still exists and recently carried out an attack in Russia. Republicans might note that this attack was by ISIS-K, or ISIS-Khorasan, which is true, and boy howdy, does Afghanistan come back into the story in a little bit. So just keep that in mind. But first, let's continue with Trump. He claims that under his presidency, we had a, quote, very, very strong border, and in fact, the strongest border in the history of the country, and, quote, drugs were at a low for 45 years. Now, it's important to fact check things both Joe Biden and Donald Trump say. The diction he uses here does make fact-checking slightly difficult. The strongest border, kind of a meaningless term, right? But the claim about drugs being at a low for 45 years can be fact-checked to some degree, although again, his approach to grammar makes it hard to tell what he's claiming here, right? Is drugs at a low for 45 years mean like drug use is at a low, drug smuggling is at a low? I don't know. He has made variations of this claim often, though, including a note on his campaign website in January 2023 that under his presidency, quote, drug overdose deaths declined nationwide for the first time in nearly 30 years. So let's assume that that's kind of what he meant to claim, that drug overdose deaths were the lowest they've been for 45 years, right? Which is, again, I mean, it's just wrong on its face because earlier he said for 30 years. So, like, which is it, Donald? But whatever. Let's say that what he meant to claim is that under his presidency, drug overdose deaths were at the lowest point in a long time, right? If we're being fair, that's the fairest I can be to him. And it is true that the overdose death rate dropped during Trump's presidency for 1 year in 2018. That's the only year that it dropped. During each of the other 3 years he was in office, the overdose rate rose. And in fact, it rose by record numbers in 2020. PolitiFact also notes, quote, looking at overdose deaths from synthetic opioids, the closely watched category that accounts for the largest share of all opioid overdose deaths, the rate rose every year of Trump's presidency. This is worth noting because all of the things he wants to do at the border to the cartels, all of his justifications for really needing to crack down on human trafficking, for wanting to use the Navy SEALs or whatever to kill cartel guys, to basically invade Mexico, it's to stop fentanyl, which he describes as an existential threat to the country. And, you know, makes the claim that basically when I was president, you know, all that stuff was, we were taking care of it. It was all declining. And then when Biden took over, it got a lot worse. No, the rate of fentanyl use and fentanyl-related deaths in particular rose every single year of Trump's presidency. Every single year. Anyway, Trump promises no mercy to the cartels and that he will designate the major ones foreign terrorist organizations with the goal of cutting off their access to global financial systems. Incidentally, this would provide a pretext to basically charging every drug user, whether or not their drugs had anything to do with the cartel, with material support of a terrorist organization, and thus allow nightmarish penalties for people caught dealing weed or LSD or whatever on the justification that they're aiding the cartels, with whom we are at war. Trump also states that he will ask Congress to pass legislation to allow the death penalty for, quote, drug smugglers and human traffickers. Now, he's made similar statements around drug dealers in the past. Here's how this particular rant on the Agenda 47 website ends. The drug cartels and their allies in the Biden administration have the blood of countless millions on their hands. Millions and millions of families and people are being destroyed. When I am back in the White House, the drug kingpins and vicious traffickers will never sleep soundly again. We did it once, and we did it better than anyone else. There's never been a better border than we had just 2 years ago. It was strong, it was powerful, and it was respected all over the world. And now we're laughed at all over the world, and we're not going to let that happen much longer. We have to take over. We have to be tough, and we have to be smart. We have to be fair. But if we don't do something immediately, our country is gone. Now, that's all ridiculous, but it behooves us to look into the origins of this particular violent fantasy. When President Trump was still in office, he repeatedly floated variations of a single idea, using U.S. missiles to destroy so-called drug factories, specifically those producing either fentanyl or methamphetamine. Obviously, cartels do operate sizable facilities where they prepare drugs for smuggling and sale. They have places where they cut fentanyl, which generally comes from elsewhere, into other drugs or make it into pills, etc., and they've got places where meth is cooked, obviously. So, as best as the New York Times has been able to trace, his obsession with military action against Mexico seems to have started in late 2019. So while the coronavirus is spreading, our president, rather than focusing on a response, is kind of obsessed with the fentanyl crisis, which is serious, but his way of dealing with it was to hold these constant large Oval Office meetings that people absolutely had to attend. Quote, and this is from the New York Times, some participants felt the meetings were of little use because officials tended to perform for Mr. Trump, and he would perform for them. And that does put the fun idea in my head of Donald Trump and a bunch of friends all dancing about, like, I don't know, whatever kind of animal you would train to dance. I'm spacing on that right now. So why don't we just roll to ads for a second while I think of animals? We're back. So I'm going to continue that quote from the New York Times. When the idea of military intervention was brought up at one such meeting, Mr. Trump turned to Brett Giroir, who was there in his role as the U.S. Assistant Secretary for Health. Mr. Giroir was also a 4-star admiral in the Commissioned Corps of the U.S. Public Health Service, and he was wearing his dress uniform. His main point was that the United States was unable to combat the crisis with treatment alone, according to a person briefed on his comments. It was clear from the way Mr. Trump singled out Mr. Giroir that he had mistakenly thought he was in the military because of his dress uniform, according to two participants in the meeting. Mr. Giroir, in his response, suggested putting lead to target, the two participants recalled. And that seems likely. Giroir denies this, right? He claims, well, the president knows me really well. We met all the time. He would never mistake me for a soldier. And like, sure, buddy. For one thing, I totally believe he could meet with Trump regularly and Trump not remember him. But also, it kind of sounds, again, and these are all maybe not the best sources, but assuming the people who are like, he said we should put lead to target are telling the truth. That sounds to me like this guy, wearing his uniform because he knows it'll impress Trump, was also trying to use military metaphors because I think maybe was just trying to have this impact on Trump, right? Make Trump think of him as like a military official giving advice. There's some claims that people in the administration were so concerned about this and were so terrified that like Trump might actually attack Mexico that they asked Giroir to stop wearing his uniform to meetings, basically being like, he's hypnotized by this shit, man. Like, if you dress like a soldier, he'll take you seriously when you say this crazy bullshit. Anyway, at the same time this is all going on, Attorney General William Barr had also started floating the idea to the president that maybe the United States should consider carrying out some attacks in Mexico to kill cartel guys to stop the fentanyl, right? His argument, though, was not so much that we should do it, but that if we threaten Mexico with military action, that will force the Mexican government to be more aggressive against the cartels. Now, William Barr is not a guy I consider very smart, and this is, in fact, a dumb idea. Because, Mexico's government has tried a bunch of different ways to fight the cartels. They haven't destroyed them, right? The current president of Mexico is more on the left, and he has a policy described as hugs, not bullets, right? Which is not using the stick to fight the drug cartels. But that doesn't mean that hasn't been tried. The Mexican government and the Mexican military have carried out a number of very high-intensity operations against cartels over the years. It's just it's hard. The cartel problem is a massive, massive, complicated thing. And the idea that, if we threaten Mexico, they'll finally do it, kind of understates the degree to which Mexico is capable of ending this epidemic or ending this problem, right? Of somehow taking back this territory and rendering the cartels unable to function. I don't actually know that they are, I don't know that. I certainly wouldn't say that the current president's plan is working, but no one else has stopped them either. So I don't know. I think Barr is rather silly when he thinks that it's just a matter of threatening Mexico with an invasion, and that'll force him to take care of this shit. I don't really know that they have the ability to do that either way. So, For his part, Barr does not seem to have actually wanted military action in Mexico. Again, he's thinking that the threat will do the trick. And in fact, when Trump pushed back that, like, well, maybe we could just shoot some missiles into Mexico, Barr pushed back on this and was like, well, if we fire missiles, we might hit the wrong target, right? Basically, civilian casualties, could happen. So we should avoid that. And that really kind of showcases how fucking dangerous someone like Barr is, because his plan is he's thinking he's playing 4D chess or whatever. It's like, yes, the Mexican government will get scared and they'll take care of these cartels for us. But when you start floating that idea to a guy named Trump, he's going to be like, well, yeah, let's just shoot him with missiles. And you may push back against that initially, but when your stupid plan to bully Mexico into destroying the cartels doesn't work because they can't or because they don't want to be bullied, then where are you, right? You can't step down at that point. You can't back off once you've threatened to bomb them, right? Because if you threaten to attack and they don't do shit, and then you just kind of like back off, you're going to look weak. And that's the worst thing in the world to these people, right? Trump's certainly not going to accept something like that. It's part of why, like, what Barr was doing here is just like incredibly irresponsible. Just with a guy like Trump, you can't pull that shit. So this means, again, that at some point, if this kind of process goes on, if Trump wins office, if he's to carry out something like what Barr was suggesting or something like what Girard was suggesting, at some point, Trump's going to need to use military assets to strike Mexico, if only to save face. And again, the safest thing for him to use would be missiles, to basically fire missiles, guided missiles at factories or whatever making drugs. This avoids risking U.S. servicemen. It certainly avoids the risk of them getting captured. Anyway, I'm going to quote from the New York Times again here. At least twice during 2020, Mr. Trump privately asked his defense secretary, Mr. Esper, about the possibility of sending Patriot missiles into Mexico to destroy the drug labs, and whether they could blame another country for it. Patriot missiles are not the kind that would be used. They are surface-to-air weapons, but Mr. Trump had a habit of calling all missiles Patriot missiles, according to two former senior administration officials. I just find that funny. Like, man, you're the commander-in-chief, and you don't know... You don't even know that, like, I don't expect the president to say, like, I want you to fire this exact version of missile, That's maybe a little more granular than is necessary for him to know. But, like, you should know that Patriot missiles don't get fired at ground targets. That's not what they do. They're kind of a major part of, like, our military, our anti-missile defense. It's just very silly of him. All this nonsense came to a head for the first time in 2020. When during one of these interminable fentanyl meetings, Trump looked over to Defense Secretary Mark Esper and asked, can we blow up these drug labs with a missile and make it look like another country did it? Now, that's, bad, right? Like, it brings up a lot of questions. Namely, like, what other country is in a position to fire missiles into Mexico, right? Like, if you're saying, oh, it wasn't us, are you saying it's Canada? Because they'd have to kind of cross a lot of space to do that. Are you saying Guatemala's firing missiles into Mexico? Because it doesn't really seem like a Guatemala move. Who are you going to blame? Thankfully, Esper was one of those rare Trump appointees who possessed a basic minimal capacity for rational thought. And we never, thankfully, got the answer to the question, what would have happened if he'd fired a missile into Mexico? Esper argued against the idea, and then he wrote about it in his memoir, which I have an issue with. He's one of these guys who, maybe we should have known about that when it happened rather than waiting for your fucking book, but people got to get paid, I guess. Reactions from Mexico to these revelations about Trump considering missiling them, and now the fact that he's got on his website, like, our plan is to use military assets to attack the cartels. Reactions from Mexico have been pretty universally negative. For reasons I probably don't need to elaborate on, President López Obrador told reporters in March, quote, this initiative of the Republicans, besides being irresponsible, is an offense to the people of Mexico, a lack of respect to our independence, to our sovereignty. If they do not change their attitude and think they are going to use Mexico for their propaganda, their electoral and political purposes, we are going to call for not voting for this party because it is interventionist, inhuman, hypocritical, and corrupt. I don't think he's wrong there. I don't know how much ability the president of Mexico has to shift votes in the United States, but it is interesting. You don't often hear a world leader, particularly not of the U.S.'s largest trading partner, say that they're going to take sides in an election. Not that openly, at least. But who never takes sides, except for your side, because they're always on your side? the products and services that support this podcast and or program. We're back. So, the opposition candidate in next year's Mexican presidential elections also made a statement that was a little bit more moderated than Obrador's, but it belittled Trump's comments about using military force on Mexico and stated, rather than threats, we should work in a smart way. So nobody's really happy with this down in Mexico. Not surprising to see why. Meanwhile, in U.S. politics, conservatives are now falling over themselves to justify military intervention in Mexico. As soon as Trump adopts this, it now becomes basically the standard Republican line that, like, we need to be sending our special forces guys in to fight the fucking cartels. I'm not going to go over a laundry list of all the dumb fucks who have embraced this crap idea, but I do want to read one quote from an ABC News article. Quote, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican, Kentucky, on Tuesday said that it was a mistake that then-President Donald Trump did not bomb meth labs in Mexico after he had reportedly asked his defense secretary about the possibility in 2020. One of the things we learned post-Trump presidency is that he had ordered a bombing of a couple fentanyl labs, crystal meth labs in Mexico, just across the border, and for whatever reason, the military didn't do it, Comer said on Fox and Friends. I think that was a mistake. Now, I want to discuss for a second how impossible it is for this plan to work. As I noted earlier, there are drug labs in Mexico, quite a few of them, making a variety and not just making, but in many cases taking drugs that come from elsewhere and basically packaging them in a way that they can be sold or smuggled. That is, those facilities certainly exist, but they are not like the large centralized factories that, I don't know, like a military rival would use to produce tanks, right? Most of this work, even if it is currently being done in a sizable facility, can be done in smaller facilities and can be moved pretty readily. And again, it's just not very intelligent to think that you can cripple this the same way you can cripple an enemy's ability to produce missiles or tanks. And even then, that's not easy. We're actually really bad at it. We've repeatedly, during wars, bombed countries to attempt to destroy their ability to produce munitions and failed to really do that to a substantial extent. And so something like the narcotics industry, which is even more underground, even more hard to identify by nature of what it is, it's a big ask on the surface, right? It's also worth laying out why it's dumb as hell to conflate drug cartels with ISIS, because a big part of how Trump thinks things are going to go is like, well, ISIS took over Raqqa, took over Mosul, and then we beat them up, we kicked the crap out of them. We destroyed ISIS. That's what I think that's literally what he thinks happens, and it's certainly what he wants his voters to think happened. But that's not really what happened, right? When the physical caliphate was liberated, ISIS went underground, and they are still there and still have the potential to take and hold territory again. ISIS attacks in both Iraq and Syria have been raising steadily for years. There's a lot of reasons for this. Big part of why things have gotten worse in Syria is that the Biden administration has done fuck all to stop the Turkish government from attacking the autonomous region Rojava, who are the folks who defeated ISIS in Syria, and that has degraded their capacity to keep a fucking lid on things. So, number one, this victory, he claims, wasn't a total victory. And number two, the reason why ISIS was knocked out of, Mosul and knocked out of most of their territorial claims in a fairly short period of time was because of a couple of things. Number one, the U.S. was providing support, but we were not carrying out either operation on our own. In both Iraq and Syria, we were supporting other extant militant groups that had a long history and a decent amount of support in the region, right? And number two, and maybe you could make the claim that that's the case with the Mexican army, but the other aspect is that ISIS were not guys who had been in charge for forever in that region and had deep bases. Most of them were foreigners, and they were foreigners who had very quickly taken urban areas and then started running them like dog shit. Cartels have existed for a lot longer. They have do effectively rule large chunks of Mexico and have done so for longer than ISIS has existed. They have deep networks of local ties and in many areas a reputation for providing services better than the Mexican government has done. I don't say this to whitewash how horrible these organizations are, but they are not ISIS, which just came up seemingly out of nowhere, took over a bunch of cities, and then got fucking kicked out and, never had a huge base of support among the populace, particularly in Iraq, because Again, there were just some assholes who showed up one day, as opposed to the cartels, which, especially once the U.S. starts bombing Mexico and killing Mexican civilians, which will happen anytime we're bombing them, just the amount of support it could potentially build for the fucking cartels is substantial. But even beyond that, the idea that you could knock these people out easily, they're not. Again, they have a deep base of support, a deep history in these areas. They have functioned for a long time, not just running things, but also constantly fighting against a military and the government that has a degree of capacity and technology at its back. So the idea that you're just going to be able to kick these guys out of whatever Sonora the way that ISIS was quote unquote kicked out of Mosul, it's fanciful. Right? It's a farce. Now, speaking of farces, I want to talk about kind of the thing that we should all see as the model for how it would actually work if Trump tried to go into Mexico to take out the cartels. And this brings me back to Afghanistan, right? During Trump's administration, the Department of Defense was empowered by the president to use vastly more force in their attempts to destroy Taliban drug labs. Obviously, Taliban funded a lot of their war effort with the sale of opium, heroin or whatever. And it was, believed that if we can destroy their ability to grow and process this stuff, we can cut the legs out from underneath the Taliban. And Trump really bought into this and allowed the DOD to accelerate their efforts to do this. Our forces started carrying out a mix of airstrikes and special operations attacks on Taliban drug labs in 2017. It is the same plan that they executed that Trump is pushing for the United States to use in Mexico. And in Afghanistan, this plan was such an abysmal failure that not only did it not stop drug production, it actually accelerated the production of opiates in fucking Afghanistan at the highest level in recorded history. This program failed so badly that the Pentagon ended their strikes on drug labs in 2019. They gave up in 2 years because they couldn't do it. They were bad at it. Now, the fact that this kind of plan that Trump has pushed would undeniably fail to actually destroy the cartels, to stop drugs and human trafficking across the border, this does not mean that it would actually be a failure for the reasons that Trump and many other Republicans want it to fail, which is that declaring war on cartels allows them to justify a major power grab and destroy or end the lives of U.S. citizens they already see as enemies. And I don't mean to say that this is more serious than the lives that will be lost in Mexico. It's certainly not, but this is very serious as well. Last October, a think tank, the Center for Renewing America, published a policy paper with the fun title, "It's Time to Wage War on Transnational Drug Cartels." The paper makes it clear that illegal immigration is just as much a priority as fentanyl in carrying out these actions. And in fact, it lists the goals of this planned military policy in Mexico this way. Number 1, ending the illegal flow of people, trafficking victims, and drugs across the southern border. Now, the paper suggests creating a new classification that is similar but different to foreign terrorist organization for the cartels. It lists a series of escalatory stages that Trump's administration should take, starting with putting pressure on the Mexican government to, take care of things themselves. And since the Mexican government is not really capable at present of ending either migration or drug cartels, escalation is inevitable. So after this phase fails, phase 2 is to have the president start deploying military units, initially to interdict the coast, but also to coordinate with the DEA to target and kill cartel figures and destroy their assets. U.S. ports will be closed whenever the number of illegal immigrant apprehensions at the border increases past a certain level, right? So they're also saying, and again, you get the feeling from this paper, while Trump always harps on the drugs and the horrors of fentanyl, it's very clear from this paper, there is concerned, if not more concerned, about the fact that non-white people are entering the country. Quote, "While costly to the economy, this, closing ports, would incentivize the Mexican government to crack down on human smugglers, migrant caravans, and cartel trafficking networks." Now, under the fourth and final phase of this plan, the U.S. government would basically carry out a full-scale invasion of parts of Mexico in order to defeat cartels and secure the border. At no point are there any suggestions made as to how this might be done or why it would be more successful than the attempts that failed in Afghanistan. Instead, they just move right on to the last phase, the victory phase, which includes these suggestions. Congress should enact legislation that creates enhanced penalties for U.S. citizens found guilty of collaborating with the cartels. Punishment should include mandatory minimum federal sentencing of 15 years in prison for working with cartels labeled as transnational criminal organizations, and mandatory minimum sentencing of 25 years in prison for working with cartels labeled under the new cartel statutory guidelines. Congress should enact legislation that defines material and financial supports for the cartels designated under the new statutory framework as tantamount to engaging in terrorism against the United States. This basically means, depending on how this is written, it could mean that doing drugs, possessing drugs, having friends who sell or use drugs could mean that you're committing terrorism by supporting the cartels. It is not impossible that that is how these laws, should they be actually put on the books ever, should this program be enacted, that's not impossible that that's how it would be interpreted. And why wouldn't they want to, right? This would allow them to lock up a shitload of people that they see as being on the left. If you think back to Richard Nixon, a big reason why, and this is a stated reason why, the war on marijuana was escalated, is that it let you arrest the fucking hippies and anti-war protesters and put them in prison. That is a big part of what a lot of people in Trump's orbit want to do with this. And I say that because the guy who wrote this fucking thing is a dude named Ken Cuccinelli. Ken is a major anti-left culture war fucker. One of his jobs under Trump was he worked under Chad Wolf, who was illegally the director of the DHS, during the 2020 uprising. In September of 2020, he ordered the intelligence branch of the Department of Homeland Security to downplay threats by white supremacists and instead focus on the danger of Antifa. Under his watch, DHS also compiled intel reports on journalists in Portland, Oregon. Might have some issue with this guy personally, and defended the abduction by federal agents of civilians in unmarked vehicles, right? When people were being abducted off the streets of Portland, he was a big fan of that. Ken Cuccinelli really likes that idea. He is also essentially a white nationalist himself. In August of 2019, he announced a revised regulation to go into effect October 15th, 2019, that expanded the public charge requirements for legal immigration, made it harder to get green cards and visas if you were poor. Basically, if you might need something like food stamps, it's harder to get, to immigrate legally to the United States. He was asked, doesn't this kind of contradict, that poem on the Statue of Liberty about welcoming, poor and persecuted people? Cuccinelli suggested a revision to the poem on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired and your poor who can stand on their own 2 feet and who will not become a public charge. So that's cool. He also made a point that the poem referred to European immigrants. So, fuck those non-white people, right? The poem was never meant for them. He's a fucking Nazi, right? He's a white nationalist at the very least. Like, Ken Cuccinelli is the kind of person that a decent society would, Google what the Romans did with the Tarpeian rocks when they had someone who was a traitor to their system. And that's what should happen to Ken Cuccinelli. But instead, he's trying to get the U.S. military to invade Mexico. So that's good. Anyway, that's Trump's Agenda 47 policy on the cartels. I hope you all had a lot of fun. Anyway, bye. Hey, we'll be back Monday with more episodes every week from now until the heat death of the universe.
It Could Happen Here is a production of Cool Zone Media. For more podcasts from Cool Zone Media, visit our website, coolzonemedia.com, or check us out on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find sources for It Could Happen Here updated monthly at coolzonemedia.com/sources. Thanks for listening.
Time for a sofa upgrade? Introducing Anabay Sofas, where designer style meets budget-friendly prices. Anabay brings you the ultimate in furniture innovation with a modular design that allows you to rearrange your space effortlessly. Perfect for both small and large spaces, Anabay is the only machine-washable sofa inside and out. Say goodbye to stains and messes with liquid and stain-resistant fabrics that make cleaning easy. Liquid simply slide right off. Designed for custom comfort, our high-resilience foam lets you choose between a sink-in feel or a supportive memory foam blend. Plus, our pet-friendly, stain-resistant fabrics ensure your sofa stays beautiful for years. Don't compromise quality for price. Visit WashableSofas.com to upgrade your living space today. Sofas start at just $699 with no-risk returns and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Get up to 60% off, plus free shipping and free returns. Shop now at WashableSofas.com. Offers are subject to change and certain restrictions may apply.
Hey, this is U.S. Olympic gold medalist Tara Davis Woodhull.
And I'm U.S. Paralympic gold medalist Hunter Woodhull.
As athletes, our lives are about having a clear path.
And a team that you can absolutely trust.
So when it came to getting the best mortgage,
we chose PennyMac.
PennyMac is proud to be the official mortgage provider of Team USA and you.
Learn more at PennyMac.com. PennyMac Loan Services, LLC, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS ID 35953. Licensed by the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation under the California Residential Mortgage Lending Act. Conditions and restrictions may apply.
This is Rob Gronkowski from Dudes on Dudes with Gronk and Jules. And talk about a perfect partnership. I'm here to tell you about protecting your end zone with Dude Wipes. If you're still wiping with toilet paper, you need to listen up. Dude Wipes are a wet, extra large flushable wipe that leave nothing behind in your behind. Because they are wet, and we all know wetter cleans better. Unlike dry wiping with toilet paper, Dude Wipes clear instead of smear. Goodbye dingleberries. Goodbye itch and irritation. Plus, if you take Gronk-sized grumpies, or as I like to call them, Gronkies, baby wipes won't do. You need extra big Dude Wipes to handle the job. And they come in different scents and pack sizes, including a single-use, on-the-go pack that you can take wherever you go for that home field advantage. So don't fumble the ball with toilet paper. Stop being an a-hole to your b-hole and start using Dude Wipes. Available on Amazon and major retailers nationwide. Dude Wipes. Best clean, pants down.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.